Call this meeting to order. Ask that you rise for the invocation and remain standing for the pledge of the flag. Father, again, as we great thanks that we give to you for allowing us the health, the strength, and the ability to come together for the purpose of conducting the business for this county. Give us wisdom and give us guidance as we consider each item of business. That the decisions we make might be that which would be the best for all citizens. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Seated, please. If you've got a cell phone, please turn it off. I turned mine off so I wouldn't have to pay the $5 fine. The renter take my $5. Give it to me. All right, first item, consideration of a resolution to approve the agenda. I would like the board's consideration to add item number 5 to old business, which would be the consideration of the King America agreement that we discussed in executive session our call meeting last Wednesday. Other than that, I don't know.
Is there a time of the essence on that? Does that have to be completed by a certain date? Because, again, I don't like adding to an agenda. I think that it would have been more fair to publish this so folks could have some input.
Well, we made the statement whenever, and last Wednesday night, the paper is already aware of it because I've talked to them. And we discussed in executive session that we would consider it tonight, so.
Exactly, but why wasn't it put on this agenda before it was sent out?
Do not know.
There is a legal question that's still unanswered. I do remember that.
If the board does not want to consider it, I just simply ask that it be put on as item number 5 for old business.
If it's not an emergency, then it's not a problem.
Well, this agenda was set prior to the call meeting, wasn't it?
It was set out. Yeah, this wasn't. I just don't like adding to the agenda unless it is emergency situation, contract has to be signed, something like that that is kind of the essence, so that the public that gets the agenda has opportunity to discuss it.
Well, I think our attorney in executive session did tell us there is a time of the essence if you want to put it that way.
There is, and in actuality, because this is a matter that is the subject of pending claim vote executive vote in regular session, is a formality that has to be followed, but the matter itself is a matter that should be discussed in executive session.
In other words, the citizens don't get the benefit of hearing the discussion anyway, because it's an executive session.
But we have to vote to accept the agreement in open session, and that's
Correct.
because each of the commissioners already been counseled by attorney and have been provided with a copy of the statement, and the only thing was someone wanted a chance to review it a little longer before taking action on it. So it was my understanding that we had already gone through executive session, we had already had counsel, and it was submitted to each and every board member.
No, there's one question that's still standing, it has to do with disclosure.
Well, we'll cover that on executive session.
We should discuss that in executive session and then add this if we need to afterwards.
Correct.
I think at this point, if nothing else, we need to do
Right.
that.
Well, why don't we wait until after executive session, and we can have this item discussed.
All right, well, I will remove my request then.
Is there any
That's all. I will entertain that motion.
Before you do, George, I got got contact this afternoon with somebody in the planning board section about tabling. Or you want to just table that now or take that off or wait for that?
Table it when it came up.
Okay.
It's down for public hearing. Yeah, it's down for public hearing, so
Okay.
we better do it that time.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second. Motion and second, all in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Next item, consideration to approve the minutes for the October 7th, 2013 Commissioners meeting. Stephanie, I'm presuming that the minutes for our call meeting last week will be presented at our next meeting. No questions, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Any opposed? So carried. All right. If we have any public comments, I would ask that they be held to that particular agenda item that comes before us. We have one appearance scheduled for 5:30, so we will hold that until that time. Next item is the consent agenda. First item on the consent agenda is consideration to accept the recommendation of sanitation fees. That should read the release of sanitation fees, I believe, as submitted by the sanitation department. Second item, consideration to approve the second reading, removing all supplemental codes of Chapter 14, Section 37, and Section 38, building regulations of the Effingham County Code of Ordinances. Do I hear any objections to approval of the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
And motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. First item of old business, consideration to approve the fire fee. Here again, that should be the release of the fire fees submitted by the fire department. This item was tabled previously in our October 7th meeting. Any discussions or questions?
There were some questions about this, and the reason we tabled it.
Correct?
Somebody got the questions that we had? There were no details on the
I'm the one, I think, that had questions, and then there were other questions that were brought up. I've had mine satisfied.
Make a motion, we approve the release of the fire fees.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Next item, consideration to approve an assignment and modification of the Staffordshire Estates Agreement. Again, this was tabled from our 9/24 meeting. Ms. Leota?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board may recall, this was tabled 4 weeks ago due to some questions regarding the ownership stake of Slyland Development. We were provided a couple of weeks ago with a copy of the actual, I'll tell you exactly what it says, operating agreement for Slyland Development LLC, showing that Mr. Frank Brunson and Mr. Alan Emmerich were 50% partners, and that Mr. Brunson resigned his position with Alan, with Slyland in March of 2010. So since March of 2010, for the last 3.5 years, Mr. Emmerich has been the sole member of Slyland Development LLC.
Was the LLC dissolved? I mean, are they still in no partnership whatsoever?
The LLC, I don't believe was dissolved. If my understanding of what was presented to us is correct, Mr. Brunson is no longer a member of the LLC, and that in essence, Mr. Emmerich is the sole member of the LLC. And I'll defer that if I'm missing something there to Eric. Is that?
I just had this discussion with Eric, because I had asked a couple of questions to be answered. for this meeting, and we're not ready back at this point. So I was asking the way that this reads, to me, is questionable because it's not even on letterhead, and it just says he resigns his position. And normally, as an example, if a person is a vice president or a president of a company, but they're also a shareholder, that's two separate things, so they can still resign their position and maintain their shares. And this is not clear that he's giving up his shares. And I guess Eric feels like that might be questionable, but it is questionable.
I mean, he's resigned as a member, which typically member equates to shareholder in the LLC context. One of the problems we have is that with an LLC, there's no way to verify independently who the members are, or whether there are other members that may have become members after his resignation. What I would recommend in a situation like this is we condition any assignment on Mr. Emrich's sworn statement that he is the sole member and has the capacity to act and get the corporate seal.
Well, the person that's going to write against this then would be Frank Brunson, so I don't understand why we don't require something from Frank Brunson saying that he.
It would be Frank Brunson as far as we know. There could have been intervening amendments
Other changes.
and other members.
So both, so we need both.
So my recommendation would be certainly we get something from Mr. Brunson as well, but I would require something from Mr. Emrich in the form of a sworn statement agreement. He is the sole member and has the capacity to act in this.
Well, the other questions I had was did we have clarification, legal verification that it's okay to have this agreement without a public bid since it's a system improvement? And then, while I understand we can do a 10-year contract, it's my understanding that the 10-year contract has to have a yearly ending point. We have to budget the amount of money that's going to be spent every year, and that's not in there. So I'm trying to be sure that we don't renew something that has issues to begin with.
Well, if Mr. Emmerich is the sole member of Slyland, then why is he not, if our deal is with Slyland, why was he asking for it to be assigned to him? Was there a reason for that?
I believe there's a reason, but I wouldn't want to speak on his behalf. I understand essentially that he would like the payments to be made to him personally as opposed to him in a company. But I mean, I wouldn't want to.
I'm not comfortable with it yet. I don't have enough answers.
And I say
And the request.
we feel comfortable that Slyland Development is going to let us pay Alan Emmerich personally. That's not good.
I'm not good with it. There's
Too many issues.
the LLC is still active. Our agreement is with the LLC. I don't see why we're under any obligation. If they were to want to sell it, or if they want, to me, it's a civil matter. It's not something that we need to get in the middle of.
Well, I agree there's certainly other ways Mr.
Disagree.
Emrich handle this internally between himself and Slyland. Or we just table it and get some more information. We can try to do that. There is no requirement on the part of the county to do this. This is simply a request.
From the developer, right? Not from staff or from the attorney, but from
We can just simply
the
make a motion
developer.
that we just don't make changes of this times, all right?
I would entertain a motion at this time that we deny this request and leave the contract as is and at this time.
Certainly do that.
She's thinking.
Without the answers to the existing contracts, okay, I have to also go into that, but if the majority of them, that doesn't matter.
Well, the contract is there now.
It is. Someone else voted for that.
I can understand the issues with this contract. But that's why I say that we would leave it as is until presented with.
I can
Well, you're asking for it.
request.
Give a motion.
What's an economic interest 2, it tells you that, do not approve the assignment or modification.
Alternate number 2 says deny, so it's no. But take no action would be, we're not saying no, but you do have to make us feel comfortable.
Typically, the agreement says that it won't be unreasonably withheld, so I'll unreasonably withholding it, if that's what the agreement says, I'm not sure. what the agreement
I can tell you exactly what the agreement says if you want. I do have in front of me. User shall not assign or subcontract this agreement or any portion thereof without the prior express written consent of the county. Any attempted assignment or subcontracting by user without prior express written consent of the county shall, as county sole option, terminate this agreement without notice to user of such termination. So that was not.
So basically, we're refusing to accept the assignment or presented.
That's your,
If
if that's your choice.
Just like a wording of and.
I'm with you.
Okay.
I'll take that motion if you want to make it,
I make a motion to order number 2, do not approve the assignment or modification.
I'll second that.
motion and a second, all in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Next item, consideration to approve the board policy modifications and financial policy updates. Just remind me, Toss, are we under a time frame on this?
We have a timeframe that we impose on ourselves in the corrective action plan of within 120 days, which I'll have to go back and it's got to be sometime first of November. We may can go on. These are the same policies that were brought before you 2 meetings ago. We did not receive any comments, at least written, from any member of the board. So they are largely as was presented prior. There are a few changes within the financial policies that staff has done. Those are shown up as highlighted in your copy that's in front of you. They are in the book in a different order. They start out as the board policies first. However y'all want to go through these, we can do them individually, aggregate. If y'all want to have questions, however y'all want to do these.
And I think we can break the board procedures out for the financial for discussion.
There's also a travel policy in here that was given to y'all previously. We've never discussed it. If y'all want to hold that one, that's perfectly fine. It has nothing to do with the, any of the audit or corrective action plans. It was just another policy that, again, we looked at every single one we had and tried to consolidate them. We can certainly hold that one if the board feels comfortable doing so.
I thought I saw an email that there was a question about parliamentary procedure.
I haven't had an email on question regarding that. We didn't receive anything in writing, yes, ma'am.
I got a couple questions on some of it myself.
Okay, do you want to do
We
them?
don't table it.
There's one thing,
How do we want to break it?
there's one thing I'd like to, I don't know how much conversation you want to have about each and every point, but one thing that I was wondering if we would like, if we would be willing to consider is if there's just like a portion that each commissioner has a problem with, we could approve it except for A or B or C, you know, the different ones that we have questions about, so we have more time to discuss those, but get the bulk of it approved. And if there's heartburn about 3 or 4 issues, then we are able to hash those out over the next couple of weeks. How would you feel about that? So we get further clarification without taking up a lot of time tonight.
You know, I don't want to approve any of it, just part of it. I don't see where you do any good to approve part of it.
Well, you do a lot of good if you approve all these financials, everything in here except for like 2 items. And you just go back and address those 2 items if you have questions about rather than holding the whole thing up. I think that's what they did for years, is held this whole thing up because they couldn't agree on everything.
Well, there's 3 sets of policies. I think we need to break them into
We can discuss them one at a time.
Yeah, it's okay with the board. We can start with the board procedures just because it's the first one in your book. And probably one of the easier ones. This is basically the document that came to y'all in June, that was amended. Largely, it has been completely reformatted. It has been added to over the years where the order of the document wasn't really proper, so it looks completely different, but it is basically the exact same document. The sections that have been added, you'll start on page 4 of 39 in your book. Section A, meetings, meeting time and place is new. It simply spells out this address, first and third Tuesday at 5 o'clock. Parliamentary procedures have been added, and this is one that at least one commissioner has had some issues over, that may need some discussion amongst the board as to whether we want to include parliamentary procedures, and if so, do we want to use the ones that are listed, which is the ACCG publication, Robert Rules of Order, or some other procedure? Stop me whenever y'all have some comments.
That's the one that I have concerns about. I mean, is that, I want to learn more about exactly what we're looking to do, the way we run the meetings, or what.
See, I think that's something that we need a whole discussion about, and we may be, I don't know if we have time when they come down from the ACCG, but that may be a perfectly great time to have them expound upon that. So that was my thinking, that we didn't have to hold this whole portion of the document up for that, but under, we could leave section 3, parliamentary procedure, and put to be determined at a future date, and then make a change when we are determined what it is. So that we kind of hold that.
That's the only thing with this.
With this.
We can leave it, we can strike it, or we can change it to say that parliamentary procedures will be decided amongst the board, much like the board used to do the vice, or does the vice chair, did do the chair. And which y'all would just decide amongst yourselves, and it can be amended at any time. There's numerous ways of
And
handling it.
that's why I'd say, just share however we decide to work.
Number 5, workshops, that was added, that's just to clarify, there's nothing new about the way we do business, it was just added to the document. Number 8, voting was added, and again, all it says is that you will follow that item. Moving on to page 5 of 39, under the agenda, there was an additional pledge to the flag. We do that, it just wasn't listed in the document. Minutes, in the original format, said approval of minutes. This was changed to consideration because you may want to amend them, you may want to time, you may not want to approve them.
Tell us, let me ask you a quick question. On item 2, preparation A, it says, let's see, an agenda for each meeting will be prepared by the county clerk, incorporating the advice of the board and the county administrator, and approval of the chairperson at least 3 days in advance of the regular meeting. Is that, anything changed in that?
No, sir.
That's all now.
No, sir. Basically, this entire section was reformatted in the original document that you approved in June, was in paragraph format. It's been changed to whatever you put A's and B's.
Well, one question I had regarding that was when you go on down to D, or what does it say? C, each commissioner has the authority to place items on the agenda by submitting a memorandum to the clerk identifying the agenda item. Does B then mean that that item could be not approved and removed by the chairman?
That was my question.
That's the question. Because we haven't had in our policy that we could actually place something on the agenda, so we're doing that so we can. And I didn't know if the intent was that we were given that ability to have it removed or not.
It's in the state law books right now that every commissioner, when the chairman's vote was taken away, it's in the state law book. Every commissioner of this board has the right to put anything on the agenda.
That's what that, I just wanted to.
Well, we want our policy to reflect that. obviously.
Good idea.
And so that's why I was asking that question, just to be clear that that doesn't override that, you're saying.
How about before we get to preparation, we got executive session in 2 different places there, where is that supposed to go?
You referring to the order of the agenda?
Yeah.
You got executive session minutes. I don't see
No,
the
it's
other
at
ones.
the top.
Oh,
That's what it was, the
Gotcha.
original, the old.
You got it 2 different
Yes,
places.
yes, when you strike one of those, you're right.
I think it was the intent that if you intended to have an executive session before a meeting, it should take place where you could have it. I mean, either way, if it comes out, I don't think it's a problem.
Yeah, I noticed that too, because sometimes we've had to do that, so it was like a placeholder, we could have it then, and we could also have it.
That's just a copy from the existing policy.
Well, we can always do that. I mean, if you have it like we've been having it, we can always move it to the beginning of the meeting if we want to, when we get to, if we have something come up.
And another thing, just a comment here, if agenda approval, if we need to modify that to just say approval or modification, consideration, then we probably want to go up to item 8 above that and say respond with aye or nay.
I thought that, I'm good with that also.
Because that would just tell us all how to vote.
The only reason we left it at aye is we say all those in favor say, people say aye, and then any opposed, and people say aye.
Yeah, same difference.
Same size.
Depends on the question.
Yeah.
Okay, it says when called for by the chairperson, voice votes will be used, board members will respond with aye.
It's always good.
I agree with you.
And again, it's your policy. We,
That's
the
right.
board happy to change anything you would like. Have no problem if you want to put overnight in there.
Maybe just respond orally.
Well,
Well, usually, each item you would call for two votes, right? All those in favor, all those opposed.
Yeah, but I mean, we kind of,
I
I understand the intent of it completely.
It doesn't
I'm just
say-
afraid you're gonna get a horse coming into town, once you know that.
Good try.
you know, my concerns, and then we're going to have our parents, you know, under these rules, just like last week, we could not have a special call meeting. We would have to have the board, regular and special call meeting shall be held in such times and places as may be determined. And it goes down.
Or you would have to vote on this to have it.
You gotta vote, the board's got to meet to vote to have it, the way that I read this.
Which number you want? Just read it.
Section A, number 2.
You know,
The policies can't override the local acts, local acts provided the chairman or any three board members can call a special call meeting.
Which is why we left that to the general assembly. We stopped short of actually regurgitating that.
So 3 people could call a meeting.
You can't
Yes,
have
sir, which again is in the statute you referred to, it created a chairman position.
so go down to item 5, the board may hold a workshop on the properly made motion, second and approved by the board.
Which we don't do.
The workshop isn't.
We don't need that.
We need to do.
I mean,
That's
the
a workshop.
Just
If we wanna
verifies
have it.
everybody to be there, so it doesn't have a confusion of what they
Yes,
end up
we
having.
need to talk about the workshop. The next workshop needs to be talked about at this meeting.
And I would agree that the vote is necessary to say, instead of just, yes, let's have a workshop on Tuesday, and then everybody goes home,
Yeah.
because we didn't vote.
It does eliminate the confusion Commissioner Mason was expressing last time.
And the idea between this special call meeting was the same as if you were sitting here and saying, well, if we can't get to it today, we'll have a special call meeting, and you guys will agree to it and vote.
All right, let's put this on hold for a few minutes if we may. We had an appearance scheduled for 5:30. Ms. Vera Lane.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Ms. Vera.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm fine.
Are you mad like normal?
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, good matchup.
For the
This-
record, I've known Ms. Vera for a long time, so.
This is involving a piece of property I purchased this year. It's federal wetlands. The property was on the market for over a year. The value of it was $15,000. There's 25 acres in it of wetlands that can't be used. Effingham seems to think that this piece of property's got a value beyond belief of $96,450. I can't seem to do anything with the tax clerk. She told me to come to y'all, so that's why I'm here. Also, I received a letter after I called over about taxes on it when I purchased this piece of property, and she told me that I would get a notice in January of this coming year. Well, they sent a notice to the previous owner, and I found out that she had been taxed for the piece of property that I had purchased. Well, then the next thing I know, I get a tax on it, which the property is not in my name yet on the tax book. And I don't like the procedure of this letter because it threatens me that I got to pay this enormous property tax of $1,141.28 in 30 days of September the 19th. Well, the tax is not due to November the 15th. But now I'm gonna have to pay these $1,141 on a $15,000 piece of property. Now, I don't know who to go to next. I've already gone to the federal wetlands. They are fully wetlands. I have gone to the tax clerk, now I'm up here with you. So, how do we resolve this problem?
How did you come to buy this piece of property?
A friend of mine owned it, and she was losing it, and I purchased the property.
So you bought it at the courthouse steps, or you
No,
bought it?
I bought it on the Foreclosure Act.
Okay, so you bought it at the courthouse steps?
No, I bought it from a realtor here.
All right, so was there a closing then?
Yes, there was a closing.
At the closing, you got a HUD statement, is that correct?
No,
You did not?
no, I didn't get a statement. It was like, the agent here in well, she's in Rankin. She had it. And they had it up for bids for a year. She had one bid on it. So I told Shirley I'd bid on it for her, and I would help her, because this is the last piece of property that she has that her daddy had left her. Well, the property's not going to be any value to me. It's only value to her, so I'm trying to help her out. In the process of this, I find out that taxes are so enormous on this thing that it's outrageous that they've done her like this. Now they're going to do me this way. Well, my mouth is too big for this. I'm not going to back off and play
Were you saying
dead.
you did not sign any papers at closing that showed you anything about anything?
No, there wasn't no tax papers at the closing on this that I saw. There was probably tax papers, but I didn't pay no attention
There's
to
an
them.
overall statement that shows like all the different costs involved with your closing. And that's what I think that's what he was asking.
There was no proration of taxes done at the
No.
property purchase? All
No,
right, you also own other property in
I
Effingham
sure do.
County, correct?
mm-hmm,
And you get a tax statement?
I sure do.
Okay. And on that tax statement, it gives you certain rights to appeal the values like
It sure does, but I didn't get that opportunity.
I know, but when did you buy this?
February.
So you
This
already knew, you knew the procedure for appealing your value?
Not on that piece of property, I didn't. I
Well,
only knew the appeal value on my
The
piece of
same
property.
rules apply to every piece of property, that's what I'm trying.
Wait a minute.
You already own property in Effingham, and you know the rules for appealing property taxes.
One thing, I paid $15,000 for this piece of property, not $100,000. You cannot tax property above its value. This is as much as my property is.
You ask a question, and I'm trying to give you an answer.
Okay.
And I'm speaking as one, not as a board, so you
Okay.
understand that.
I understand that.
There is a method set up by the legislature for appealing tax valuations. And that's what I was trying to was to determine if you already knew what that procedure was, because even though you did not get this tax notice, you knew that you owned the property.
Mhm.
And you got the other, you knew the appeals process, you knew that you could file an appeal with Board of Equalization, and that's the authority basically that's set up by the legislature for you to appeal.
That failed because I called over there after I purchased the piece of property, and she told me that I would get a notice in January, either February, when this property went over to my name. It's in Shirley's name right now. It's still in Shirley's name right now. She took Shirley's name off and put it in my name. Shirley just got a notice from y'all, planning and zoning, that somebody's wanting to rezone a piece of property. It's still in her name. You can't tax me for stuff that's not in my name. It's not on the tax book in my name. It will be there in January, either February, when all of it rolls over.
That's why there's usually a closing, and that's why taxes are usually prorated because property taxes follow the property, not the owner.
Exactly.
So,
But as the tax record showed, property's still not in my name. It's in Shirley's name. She got the tax bill on it.
Did I understand correctly that last year when she was taxed, or last year?
That was the first year of the enormous tax.
And
Yes,
she-
ma'am.
And she paid that?
She called over there and asked. She's right here now. She asked them not, if she could appeal it.
But she did pay that? I'm asking.
Yes, she did pay it.
And did she make you aware that that's what the tax bill was last year?
Yes, she did, and that's not right.
you got anything else to tell this board?
No, I'd like to know what y'all gonna do. Are y'all gonna do anything about it, or shall I go further?
I think we're gonna take a vote on it unless anybody's got a question.
I have a couple of questions for
Okay.
Janice Bevel.
Well, this is an appearance, this isn't an action, it would have to be moved to.
Yeah, we don't vote tonight, but I do have a couple of questions for Janice for clarification purposes. I meant to call you, but if she could come to the microphone.
Miss Janice, can you come up? Commissioner Jones has a question for you. Or maybe two.
I have one for her too.
Yes, ma'am.
Regarding the wetlands, I wanted to get some clarification. I know she's saying that it's either majority wetlands. Is that the case? What is the situation?
We've
on that?
looked at it and we've gone through perimetering according to the way we do our soil types. And what we came up with was 10 acres good, 2 acres fair, and the remaining acres poor, using our schedule.
And it's taxed according to that?
No. In 2011, we did a countywide reevaluation and changed our small acre schedule. And when we do that, we pull all factors that we have that's previously existing on pieces of property that's been put there because of different reasons over the years. In 2011, we were still in the moratorium, so that value stayed the same as it was in 2010 and 2009, which was less than the new value. When it came off in 2012 is when it went to that value.
So the next year's is already figured at a lower.
Next year, we're using the perimeter that I just gave you to put factors on that piece of property for 2014. But for 2013, the Board of Assessors' hands, we're finished. We can't do anything else, and we don't recommend anything because there's a process in place. And it wasn't appealed in 2012 or 2013.
Well, just a minute.
Do we have an idea of what it is, what the value will be? Is that much wetlands? Probably not working out. What was it, I guess, back in 10 or 11?
Yeah.
What was it again?
And 10 is $35,000.
I'm also interested to know that y'all have numbers to see what it will be this year using those factors.
You'll have to hang there and let me shift through all these.
Can I ask you something? Are y'all taxing it on a full?
Let her finish, please, and then we'll go back.
I thought she was finished.
Okay. I don't have the 2014 with me yet because those values have not been approved. I can go back and tell you what it was in 11 and 10 and 8 and 9 and all of that, but until it goes to the Board of Assessors.
10 and 11.
Okay. In 2011, the fair market value was $30,140. In 2010, it was $30,140. In 2009, it was $33,159.
How did it triple in value?
In 2011, we did a countywide reevaluation. We changed our small acre schedule. Actually, the base was lowered, But because of doing a total reevaluation, all factors are removed from property. If they've been put on there over the years, we take all of that off because the new base value and factors are accessibility, desirability factors are supposed to reflect the current fair market value without additional factors applied.
And basically, like it or not, then it's up to the citizen to
Right,
argue their
that's
case.
right. And several years ago, legislation was changed so that every property owner gets a tax assessment notice every year. In prior years, you had to make a return and disagree with the value. And there was a lot of objecting to that because a lot of folks didn't know they had to do that. So they said, okay, every year, every property owner gets that notice, has the right to appeal. And I don't even know how many years ago, legislation was also changed, giving the tax commissioner direction that property that changes hands through the year, the PT 61, which is the real estate transfer tax, she gets a copy of that, and she has a clerk that goes through that so that the prior owner and the new owner, if they purchase it after the first of the year, are aware of a tax bill, because we don't know at closing who's responsible, so both property owners get a copy of the bill. And that's why the prior owner got it and Miss Lamb got it, is they were just following the law, and it's between them. Software will only accept one payment, so that's why they both got the bill. They weren't trying to double bill.
This particular year, I actually have a piece of commercial property that's 6 of 10 acres is wetland. This particular year, I was affected the same way. I caught it at the very end of the year, just under the wire in time for it to get straight down. If had I not appealed it, then I would have been in the same situation the year that these factors came off.
But the laws are set up so that we go through the process, we go through the appeal process, we give you a number to advertise, set your millage rates, and move forward, thinking that property owners will take advantage of their due process. So, and she's very right. My clerk probably did tell her, because she bought it in February, she will get a notice in 2014. So all of that was completely correct, and she will, and it will be in her name. But for 2013, the value on every property is set on January 1 of 2013, or 2/14, or whatever the first day of the year is what you own and what's there.
That's still a lot of money for wetland, $4,000 an acre. Anyway.
But there is a process in place, and there are over 28,000 parcels in this county. There's 12 people in the tax assessor's office, and at some point, the taxpayer has to take responsibility and say, hey, this is wrong. That's why we spend $14,000 a year to mail every property owner an assessment notice. And the law also sets priorities on what the Board of Assessors can do, and once it gets appealed, it goes to the Board of Equalization. It can then go to the Superior Court. If there is no appeal, then all we can do is assume the taxpayer is satisfied with the value.
All right, under the law, I'm correct. It's too late. There's no way for the Board of Equalization to hear this.
No, it was not appealed.
All right. So the only course of action is going to be then for Ms. Lamb to appeal to this board.
That's correct.
Would it be possible for your office, I've sat across from you with the Board of Equalization before, and I've heard exactly what you just said before. A lot of times it gets down to the appeal because it's too late to do anything else.
Right.
And your office has come up with, we recommend the value be changed to this.
But that's usually the appeal has come in,
I understand.
and it's gone to the Board of Equalization, and the law was changed a couple of years ago so that up until the time it goes to the Board of Equalization, the property owner can work with us and they can sign a waiver agreeing to a value. We sign that same waiver, and they don't have to go before the board.
Derek was shaking his head no at some of those, and I would say, what is the legal advice you want?
Is there not a way for your office at this time to
No. Once the appeal process, as far as I know, goes out of our hands, unless we can find that there was a error, which there was no error. That's a difference of opinion and value. That's two different definitions. Okay? We have no other voice in that matter. It goes before the Board of Commissioners, and then you can ask questions, and we can give you information that you ask for, and you can make a decision.
Would it be possible, if I was still sitting on the Board of Equalization, for me to get your, and I understand, I had the same questions that Commissioner Loper, you just expressed, how does this happen? But I understand we have a computer program, and it's mass appraisal. We're not looking at individual pieces of property.
That's right.
But can your office give us your recommendation of what the tax would be this year? Pulling that out and present that to Ms. Lamb, and then she can use that information to come back before this board for a vote.
I can give you that value after it goes to the board, because I have done the small acre schedule and do have my recommendations ready for the next Board of Assessors meeting in November. So after that time, we can tell you what we're recommending for 2014.
And that board meets the latter part of November?
They meet the first Monday of every month at 4:30. It's been for the last 10 years.
Yeah, I know that Aaron is trying to tell us, he's trying to tell us what the law
I
is.
want to remind the board cannot hear tax appeals. The board can only hear refund requests when taxes have been paid.
Correct.
If taxes have not been paid in this situation, there is nothing for the board to hear at this time as far as a refund request.
By Georgia state law, we cannot hear a
It's by
tax appeal.
state law, and the reason for that is to
Because
separate
you've got all of this
the
other.
governing authority from
But if their
tax
office,
assessment and tax collection process.
if their office was to be able to prepare that information and Ms. Lamb was to go and pay the taxes, then that's why I say give it to her, and then she would have information to come back before this board to use, to ask for a refund.
Right, under the criteria that apply to a refund request.
Does that?
And the law, the reason we'd be able to possibly, the reasons for a refund would be that we determined that there was an error. What would be the legal reason then that we could determine the refund?
To look at the statute, I think the words are erroneously or illegally assessed or collected. Erroneously or illegally collected, I think is the terminology, but I'll get you that in time for next meeting.
Where's all these acres here that are good acres at?
The key was, well,
You know, maybe
technically,
not
people
today,
follow
you'll
the
have to come in the
parameters.
office and then we'll
Because
sit down and
it
go through it.
was countywide.
If it's increased at the same rate as the whole mass
Hey,
section.
mine went from 100,000 to 1.9
Exactly
million.
right, that those wetlands go
We have
up
to
right
wait
here.
It is a revenue that should be spared.
Does anybody have any other questions for Ms. Jackson?
You can fill out an application.
Oh, I did that on my own, and y'all got
Ms. Lamb,
It's like the
I'm
land
gonna ask
value is
that
locked
you-
in the 3% a year.
address whatever you got to this board. We don't need all these.
Can she address you for a few minutes?
I owned the land last,
We're done with you, Ms. Jackson.
last year, and I did not get one of those papers saying how much it was going up. The whole time my dad owned this, I've owned it about 25 or 30 years, my family's owned this property, and the taxes have never been over $350 a year, or maybe $400. And I did not get one last year. I called several times and told them when I finally did get the paper saying what the tax for the year was, and I was just floored because I said, oh, $1,100, $1,200 when I've been paying like $350 a year in taxes. And they said, oh, it's too late, you got a paper. I did not get that paper. You know, the mail could, and I paid them though. I paid them.
I understand.
But-
What I'm trying to outline is what the statutes and the law allow for. Ms. Shirley, if you feel like you overpaid your taxes, the law allows us to look back up to 3 years.
Okay, all right.
You have the same right to appeal to this board if you feel
Okay.
like you overpaid your taxes. I cannot tell you what the outcome of that will be, because I cannot speak for a board
Because-
decision.
They always told my dad it was
Miss-
wetlands.
Ms. Lamb, the same thing, under the law and under the way that the law is set up, you have missed your right to appeal
She
through
didn't
the
get
normal
paid for either.
process.
I didn't get paid.
She didn't get paid for either.
And your only remedy would possibly be to pay your taxes and then to turn around and appeal to this board for a refund.
Hey,
And I have asked Ms. Bevel if her office would be kind enough to figure what they thought your taxes should have been using the factors that she outlined. I would recommend that you work with her office after the assessor board meets and try to get that information and bring it back before this board. But tonight, that's as far as we can go. We've
So
heard.
I'm gonna pay taxes on property of $15,000 value at $100,000 value?
That's what he said.
That's what you said?
And that's what the state process requires. It does not allow the board to adjust taxes. It only allows them to issue refunds of taxes erroneously or illegally collected. That's the way the state set up the process. It's not because of this board. It is the way the state set up the process.
What closing, if I may ask, what closing attorney did the closing for the purchase?
Who was he, sure? Hold on, just a minute, I got it right here. God. I think this is in my head. No, that's not, I don't even know. It was real estate agent in Lincoln, her real estate agent, that's all I know. Dee Dee Ron.
I might request if you come back before us, if you would bring a copy of your closing documents, that would be helpful.
Alright, okay, hold on a minute, I probably got them in this file. I just thought about this. I'll bring up something while we're at this. Okay, y'all talking state laws. I purchased my house under a foreclosure act and I bought it in September. Okay, I didn't get a tax notice that year. I didn't pay no taxes that year on that house. The next year in January, I got tax notice. And they gave me my value, what I paid for my house. Okay, why is that law changed and nothing's ever been said about it?
First off, I would question that you ever got a tax notice in the month of January.
I got a tax notice in January with the purchase price on it.
You're just special, that's all
I know, I'm very special. Wendell, did you have something to do with this?
No, ma'am. Didn't affect my pay.
Let's see.
All right, I think that's the best direction that I can give you, and this board can give you at this point.
Okay, well, I'm gonna keep going the other way then, you know that. I don't feel like I've got a fair shake on this tax matter, because I don't see how anybody can say that taxing on a piece of property of $15,000 value at $1,100, Effingham might need this money, but I need my money worse than you do.
Well,
So
I
this
think
is
the
not what
tax
he said.
assessor will agree with me. Next year, the value that you paid for that property will be used next year. So if you
It should
paid
be used this year.
$15,000 for it, and there was a PT done showing a $15,000 purchase, your tax valuation next year, for 1 year, will be at that $15,000.
But it should be this year, because I've owned it all the year except for 1 month.
Tax valuations are set on January 1st of this year, so what you paid for it in February does really not have a bearing on it. It doesn't.
Okay.
But I would, give you the advice that we've already given you to pursue that other, and then bring it back, and you could ask, petition for a refund. That's what the law allows, and that's what we have to follow. All right. Thank you, Ms. Beard.
Ask him.
Where do you get the petition for a refund at? Here or from her?
You can get it from the clerk's office.
You would have one there?
I can print it for you.
We need two of them. Okay.
Well, at this point, Ms. Shirley, you're the only one that can petition for a refund. You're the
I
only
know,
one that's paid
really,
it.
really. Yeah, well, it's my mind.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right. All right. Is it the will of the board to continue discussion on item number 5 or to, that's 4, I'm sorry. No, that's 3. Remember to bring the glasses on. Or would y'all like to table that and where we can have a lengthier discussion and move forward with some of this other outlook?
You talking about the entire thing or the,
I'm just talking about let's,
If we're not going to approve it, the ones, except for the ones that we have issues with, it's gonna be a long conversation.
it's gonna be a long conversation, I think.
Did you get section 1?
More prudent to move it.
That does qualify as being a workshop item. I do think we could dedicate at least an hour to that.
And that's fine, I'll remind y'all at our next meeting, though, we have the wills done, so we already have the 3:30 workshop. And I also go ahead and take the time out, so we had previously scheduled a workshop on the 19th for development manual, which I believe we can push off into December. So now we can push that day to move, to accommodate this, but I say that only to say we already have a 3:30 workshop on the 19th, so if y'all want to have a special call workshop just for this, or however y'all want to handle it.
It seems to take a long time. I would favor a special fall workshop next Tuesday. No? It's just not enough. I'll be good by then, and then I'll be away.
We sent in, if we emailed our issues, some of our concerns and issues in it, one time before the workshop, so.
Or if y'all want to continue to talk about it tonight, I'm just asking if we
Well,
can.
why don't we move it, no, not now, we'll move it at least to the end of the meeting. When we get through the business and,
See where we are.
yeah, if we have time, we can pick it back up later. I don't think we should just skip it for now. Later, we can decide if we want to address it tonight or do a workshop or move it to the table to a meeting.
All right, okay with everybody if we move item number 3 under old business down to after our planning board. Fine. So moved. Discussion on county ownership and maintenance of unaccepted.
I don't know, I think we might need to actually,
You do.
yeah.
But,
All right, I'll make a motion to move this to after the planning board presentation.
I'll make a second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. We're gonna keep this straight. Item number 4, discussion on county ownership and maintenance of unaccepted subdivision roads. I would almost think that we need to do the same thing on that one.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, when we last left off, we were trying to bring some additional information as to our ownership. I don't believe we have yet ascertained that information, but it was paper date specific, so we left it off.
So we need to just table it.
Yes, sir, I believe so.
Item is item.
Item number 4.
Okay,
Under
before we
old
table it,
business.
before we table it, let me make a quick suggestion.
Well, before it's directed and discussed. Yes.
Okay. Just something, it's fine to table it, but then this will be out there in the air and it'll be something everybody's kind of considering. Something that I was wanting to have the board consider is possibly that we moved on the items that say they have minimum damage listed. And then at that point, the ones that are moderate or unknown or severe, then we have an updated fee structure. Here, let's look at. I think that's a way that we get a bulk done it would be so heavily burdensome, on staff, and that's something we can think about anyway, so that's just some.
Well, but the legal question is the ownership, right?
And then you still have to do a quick claim, and a caveat to that is, if they agree to pay the taxes, if they're finable and agree to pay the taxes and consign to.
But if the questions of ownership that we got to get answered, then it really doesn't matter if it's minimum, severe, moderate.
What do you mean the question of ownership?
I believe that last time we left off, we were looking into the possibility of whether or not we had already accepted ownership of these by reference of the language on the plats or how the board voted on them previously.
We don't have an answer to that yet?
No.
Why don't we have it?
It's been years.
I can tell you that as of '99, your subregs had a clause that provided approval of the final plat shall not be deemed to constitute or affect an acceptance by the county of the dedication of any street or other ground shown upon the plat. I think it's been discussed with the board before. You need two things to accept a road. You need dedication, which is the offer, and you need acceptance. And both the dedication and the acceptance can be expressed or they can be implied. Express acceptance is when a deed comes before the board dedicating the roads and you accept the deed. The problem is implied acceptance is much harder to determine, and I'm not sure whether we have the information we need to make that determination. We have correspondence here and there on some of these subdivisions from OMI to the developer with a checklist or a punch list of items. In some cases, there's a fairly frequent update and information notifying the developer that things still haven't been done. In other cases, there's one letter that went out and then there's a 6-year gap before we see any correspondence stating that the punch list items haven't been done.
What's implied to the residents that bought lots on recorded plats?
Well, let me get to that. The bottom line is that at the end of the day, the board is going to be responsible for subdivision roads. And the issue is going to be whether and how repairs are made and who pays for it.
So again, there's where my suggestion lied, that if it says minimum and they'll pay the taxes and we can do the quick claim would at least clean it up, if nothing else. If we want to determine as a board is that we've already taken it, we can do it that way, or we can do the quick claims, depending on Eric, what you say is the cleanest on that.
But we're still requiring under that scenario a deed from someone.
That's what I'm asking. He's saying maybe you wouldn't have to, if we deem that we've taken it as an implied, then that would not be the case.
There are some, and we've only got detailed information on about a half dozen of these subdivisions, and there are more than that listed in your agenda package.
Yeah.
We're still waiting for information on the other subdivisions.
Well, I think I did count, there's something like 59 subdivisions, and then it's 100 and something roads, of course, but you know, I guess the goal would be whatever ones that we can ascertain clearly are the easiest to handle, let's handle them. And then start chipping away.
That is very definitely an option for the board, and you know, it's something the board may want to consider doing. In the long run, though, I think it's a problem, even where the roads, let's assume the roads haven't been accepted by acceptance. We don't have deeds. We still have a problem the board has to deal with.
Yes.
And the issue is going to be how to pay for the repairs that need to be made to bring them up to county standard, get them in our road system.
But we don't have to do the repairs the day we take the roads, just like all the other roads.
We need to move forward. I know that.
Yeah. We can't keep putting it on for years because there's repairs needed.
Yep.
We need to resolve this. The only problem is that do we want to take some roads in a subdivision?
No.
I mean, would we take 3 roads of 5 within a particular subdivision? Well, then we've got some listed as minimum in the same subdivision and some listed as severe.
Well, for clarification, if everybody in the subdivision would say minimum, then that would not qualify. Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, more particular, there's some listed as minimum that you have to go through a moderate or severe to get to, so that's, I would
That
certainly
would
suggest
work,
it's all.
right. That would disqualify it. It had to be the entire subdivision is listed.
Yes, ma'am.
That's just a thought that I was throwing out there anyway, so I think we need to table it, but we definitely need to move on. There's citizens,
I'm
and there's
receiving
citizens.
this that I won't prioritize for as District One, because we're talking about this 10 months.
I'll do this one.
No.
No,
So that's all of it.
2.5 years.
Ms. Jones, so in your scenario, we would be getting deeds and taxes would be paid on the ones that would be minimal?
In my scenario, with every road in subdivision said it had minimum repair needed, and we could get the,
Taxes paid,
who
deeds signed.
owns the road showing that would be a scenario. However, with what Eric's saying here, if we're able to ascertain that we actually are already the owner, then that part would not be necessary, and we need some clarification on that.
One of my concerns is that what we have from Illinois records may not be complete, because it just seems, one of the things they were tasked with doing was the subdivision road approval process, and, I see some of these roads, a punch list sent out, and then no correspondence at all in our file.
I'd be fine with a cursory drive through, by county engineer or some, on the ones that are easily.
Well, what I guess I'd like to know is, where there was follow-up, we need to get all the documentation we can get from Illinois, if we put in an additional.
Unfortunately, what you have is what's available. Now, whether, it appears that during the busier times is when their information gets a little sketchier, and unfortunately, they're not around now to ask. What we have available is what was left in that building when the old mile left, and that's the record that you have. And I'm not suggesting it's complete.
Well, since we went forward and started the discussion on something, no, that's okay, because let's ask the questions, well, why don't we take them all? Let's take them all, and whatever is above a certain level, that subdivision, we create a special tax district, and we tax those people to fix those roads.
They already paid it.
I'm asking, if we're discussing.
Well, in truth, I don't understand exactly how I completely feel about it. I believe that it was always the intent of the Norman roads. I believe it was, I believe there's just responsibility all the way around with the scenario. And basically what we're trying to do at this point is not help any developer out, for God's sake, but the citizens that are living in the subdivisions or that have bought lots in the subdivisions. But I think we have to look strongly at helping create a special tax district anywhere, anytime. That's not something I'm quickly in favor of doing.
Well,
And I think they're already paying higher taxes on that property. It's being, you'll have people with a fourth of an acre being taxed at a value of $40,000. So I think they're being taxed already.
Okay. So you're in favor, because if the roads have got to be fixed, they've got to be funded in some manner. So for someone that bought a house in a subdivision that's obviously got bad roads, and they made that purchase with their eyes wide open,
Then they may have to wait on a repair.
then,
But we own
but we fix their roads and we raise everybody in the county's taxes, because the money's going to have to come from somewhere. Then everybody in the county is being asked to fund this bad roads and this
Well,
subdivision.
is the question that we pretend like we don't own roads that we own? Is that the question?
No, that's a question I still don't know.
Okay.
Because if
It's
the,
moot either way if we actually own them.
because if the county owned the roads in the subdivisions that I have done, when I signed my plats, then I got like at least the last 3 years of my taxes back that I paid on those roads.
Well, that's been taxes on roads and subdivision.
Yeah, but, and
We don't have,
$800.
We don't have the money.
That by the number, then we've got another issue there.
Well, that's where the confusion comes in, is we end up doing nothing because we have some subdivisions that need a lot of work, and then we got all these others that don't, so we end up doing nothing because.
Yeah, and then the question is, some of these people might not want to sign the deed. Some of them may be defunct and gone and whatever.
we're not doing that.
And then, are you saying that we go ahead and basically say, well, they're ours anyhow?
I'm saying if Eric says that they ultimately are, if the law says that they ultimately are, then there's a way to handle that.
If we've done any work on these roads, we've impliedly accepted them. And that's one of the things we don't, because there's so many roads here, I don't know if we have complete information about whether we have worked any of these roads.
I would not say absolutely no, but I would say with a great deal of certainty, we've not done work on any of these roads.
Because there's some.
When you have subdivisions, just as an example, that has big lots, and it's been a completed subdivision for, say, 8 years. And they've been paying tax values of $300,000 a house for 8 years. And they have minimal damage inside their subdivision.
No, you know, I'm not trying to argue, I'm just asking questions, but, you know, there are several subdivisions, I know some 21 lots, some 30 lots that are sitting empty.
So that separate the easy from the difficult. Handle what we can and then figure out case by case.
I know, but I think we have to set a precedent as to what what is ours. And follow that precedent.
We don't need to accept any until we get the ones we already got.
I agree with your point about
just
if we
because
own
it's
them,
easy.
if we own them, then we own them. At
That's right.
whatever the law is on all of them. I agree with that.
I represent one of the developers on that issue.
Just come to the podium.
Okay.
Good evening, Mickey.
Morning, or afternoon, excuse me. My name is Mickey Kickleiter. As y'all probably know, I represent Mike Jenkins on this issue. In the position that we took on behalf of Mr. Jenkins, I recognize what Eric said about your ordinances saying just the acceptance of the plat does not constitute the acceptance of the roads. However, you also have another provision of your own county ordinance that says if there is a private road, it must be designated on the plat as a private road, and every deed that is sold of a residence on that road must have listed on the deed that it's a private road. So the position that I took on behalf of Mr. Jenkins in the letter that I submitted was that because your county ordinance requires, if it is a private road, to be designated as a private road on the plat, and because the county approved the plats without that designation and allowed it to be recorded, and the county approved and allowed the deeds to be recorded without that designation, then by default, under your own ordinance, they are public roads and you own them and are responsible for every aspect of them. That's the contrary position to the position that your ordinances say, just by accepting the plat, you're not accepting the roads, but you have a competing provision of your own ordinance that says if it's a private road, it must so designate, and most of the ones you're talking about don't so designate. Certainly the ones that I wrote you about on behalf of, I can't remember the two corporations that I wrote for Mr. Jenkins, but they were both Mike Jenkins corporations.
And I don't know, I just can't get past that there's an implied understanding of citizens when they buy inside a subdivision. That's the bigger thing, is all these citizens that are buying a subdivision.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say is that your own ordinance also says that it's got to be on the deed if it's a private road. And when a private individual gets that deed without that designation and the county accepts it and allows it to be recorded, I take the position that that means that individual is not informed it's a private road, and therefore, per your own ordinance, it is not a private road. Those are the competing issues.
So we could potentially own a road in a gated subdivision if it's not designated as a private road. And I know that gets kind of down in the weeds.
Thank you for that.
Sorry.
Fortunately, none of the subdivisions I represent are dated.
Well, I'd like to be sure Cypress Lakes over there has that designation on there, because I hate to feel.
I get back to the first comment, we have a problem, we have roads that, they're in subdivisions that, as Commissioner Jones points out, they're built out, houses are done. There was little correspondence, about punch list items, in some cases for months, years. We have an issue. I think the county, unless we have done work on the roads, I think we could take the position that we have not accepted the roads. But I think ultimately you have to deal with the fact that there's a problem there, it has to be fixed. And the real issue is going to be how do you intend to deal with accepting and then paying for whatever repairs need to be made. So I think we could get hung up on whether or not there's been implied acceptance. Typically a very fact-intensive issue that ends up, being decided based on lots and lots of little facts that we thought were important at the time. Like a road crew going out and patching a pothole that was 3 feet deep that opened up one day because of an emergency situation, or, in some cases, maybe the lack of correspondence will be compelling to a court that, well, they sent out a punch list in 2002, and then there was no other correspondence until 2007. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, but in some cases that's probably close to the scenario.
It leaves, he could care less.
That's right, and to the homeowner in the
To
to the homeowner living in the subdivision, all he knows is he lives in a subdivision and wants his road to look like any other county maintained subdivision road. So I think what we have to deal with is how we're going to move forward. And
So let me just give a short example here. What I'm having a problem with is, obviously, I'm in construction business. The People's Bank out of Baxley hired me to go to Honey Ridge subdivision, develop a walkway, left it. The bank had a punch list, quite a few things they had to do to get the property up to where it could be accepted by the county. They paid us to do that. We did that. They reflected the cost of that in the sales of what they are selling now, what a few lots they have sold, but they're reflecting that cost in those houses. So now the people that have bought in there, when we do this, and we pass this and say that we're gonna ask everybody in the county to foot this bill, so now these people are going to be asked to pay yet again for repairs done to subdivisions where developers walk away. Or banks, in that case, the bank recognized that they owned the property along with the roads, and they fixed it. We've got other banks that are saying, oh no, whenever we held this property as collateral, we held the entire property until the lots were cut up, and then once the lots were cut up, we didn't hold the roads as collateral anymore, so the roads, we don't know who they belong to. So that's the problem I have, is we're asking the ones who did everything right to pay yet again. And then further,
that's exactly the discussion about whether they have a special road assessment in a particular subdivision.
On that type of scenario that we have to.
We're not talking about a few $1,000s.
Yeah.
We're talking hundreds of thousands, if not into over $1 million, that I can see in a few of these that I know about.
That type of scenario could be different. And that's why it's hard to put them all together and put the subdivision where they've been paying $4,000 a year in taxes per house. And they've got 2 culverts that's been run over by a garbage truck that needs repair. That's a whole different scenario.
Mr. Kicklighter and I could go and we could hash this out in front of a Superior Court judge, and at the end of the day, I'm not sure either one of us would be able to predict exactly what the court would do.
Well, we
But
can't
we
leave it
still would
like
have
it
a
is.
problem, that's the point. We still would
Can't
have
leave
a
it like
problem.
it is.
So we need to.
And Rick and I were just talking, as y'all know, Rick Raptor's an attorney too. And Eric brings up an interesting point. An easy way to solve the problem would be, in a friendly manner, to go before a Superior Court judge with a declaratory judgment action and ask the judge to tell you And each side argue their arguments and let the judge decide, and then you know. And quite frankly, I don't think it matters how much money it is. The issue is, what do the ordinances say, and what does the law do with those ordinances?
Well, I know why you recommend that.
Why would I recommend? Because it solves the problem.
I know
Then-
why you recommend that.
Oh, because I get paid more money? Well, there is always that.
Think you know which way that would go.
Well, yeah, I think, I was just telling Rick, I like my argument, but I always like my arguments.
The problem is,
But it's an easy way to solve an issue that y'all been struggling with for years.
but the other problem is, even if the county is right, even if the county takes a position that, well, assume the county takes a position they haven't been accepted, and a court agrees, what is the end result? You still have the problem. You still have to figure out how to take the roads and how to pay for the repairs. That's the point, I guess, I'm trying to get to. And
Because you get residents in these subdivisions that can't get FHA loans.
now, where you have subdivisions that haven't been built out, you know, that's a different scenario. Where you have,
Correct.
you know, homes, the developer's long gone.
Yep.
You know, I'm not sure you gain anything in the long run by taking the position if they're not.
Back to my suggestion, my original suggestion,
I'm
to cure all that.
Prioritize, take the easy ones, and let's move forward. I mean, we're getting nowhere with this.
Okay, so we need to table it.
If y'all would like for me to prepare a list of just those, and then we could just go through those more particularly, I would like to do
$10,000
so.
less, can we put a dollar figure on it?
Well, and to more fully describe what my minimum means in dollar figures. I
Just
would-
so we can
could
get
try
to-
do that.
Get to it.
Yeah, but I mean, I was just looking through these lists, like there's two that I just saw that the punch list were clean the grass out of the gutters. You know, if they start building houses, that won't be an issue. Those are the ones I'm suggesting that we take.
There was one I seen on the list, Louisville Road somewhere, where it was recommended to accept, but it was never brought to the county court acceptance.
Yeah, and those require zero capital outlay by the county immediately anyhow. Those are the ones that I would suggest that we move forward with on an easy basis. I'm certainly not saying ones we have to do like Honey Ridge, they had to cut the road, repair some pipe, but there was the grass issue also with Honey Ridge, so. You know,
That's why I said where it said minimal on every street and subdivision.
however you want to work.
That'd be some way to do it. Somebody's got a better idea.
I just want to get over it.
What?
I just want to get moving over to something.
But there's several issues still, unless I'm missing something. Number one, the county's gotta decide whether or not it's their road to begin with. Because if it's not, then we have to establish some procedure for taking it. And if these people aren't there, or, I mean, we've got to come up with all of these criteria as to how to do it. We
Then
can't
do we
just simply
wanna-
say, let's take all the easy ones.
Do we first want to take a vote on if there's a recorded plat with dedication language? Yea or nay? We believe that means we accepted it. Take a vote, and I'll establish what our policy is on that. Then we move to the next.
If there's dedication language, I think you can choose to accept, of course.
If we allow the plat then to be recorded and allow staff to approve it, gave us the authority to do so. And we can keep it filed up, or we can come up with an answer.
But would the proper way to do that, if we look at a deed, a plat of a recorded subdivision, and if that wording is on there, then we deem it to be accepted then, or accepted now?
Well, I'm good with what Nikki suggested. Let's take this and let a judge give us a definite answer on what this is.
How long does that take?
Depends on what judge we get, honestly. If you
I'm
get,
not an attorney, I know nobody else on this board is, so we need to act like.
what do you think, Eric, probably 60 days?
More than that.
And then,
6 months.
then if you appeal, it's gonna take another 9 months, but if one side or the other
I just don't know
appeals.
that you get anywhere, because at the end of the day, if the developer is not around anymore, you know, you still have a problem, even if.
Then we still have
Yeah,
a
you still
problem.
got-
There's a term not to have been accepted, so.
You-
Still got citizens paying taxes
Yeah.
in a certain way. So let's move this thing on, take some votes.
To answer your question, probably 60 days. You could have an answer in 60 days.
That'd be 6 months.
He knows our judges better than you.
By now, they want to know as well.
We don't table it now till let Tulsa.
I'm gonna give you a list and ask the staff to move forward, like I said, with something in my district.
Put on the agenda.
Put on the agenda, I'm gonna vote up or down.
What the ones you want to talk about the agenda?
And also, Tulsa could do the same type of list he was referring to.
I like what y'all said.
Well, I could go through and do those, and if you look at like Abbey Lane, the very first one on there, it does say minimum damage on the roads, but there's never been a subdivision plat recorded, so I would not suggest that the board take that because there's no right way to take it. So, I mean, I do need to go through and give a little more clarification than just everything is minimal.
Understand.
And again, if that's the direction of the board, I would certainly go through and do that.
Initially, the way I understood this first list, and this is why I'm a little bit, I thought the first list was doing this, was gonna make some kind of recommendation, that's like, here's some ones that need, when we do that, and that's what I thought was gonna happen, but now it's been weeks and weeks, and we're still not there, so that's why I'm trying to make that.
It is, but it's a damage and a comments. If you look at the comments, sometimes there's more behind. Again, the damage assessment was simply on the road that had no other mitigating factors. Those are in the comment section, such as Kate's Cove is another one we discussed. I would say that those roads have minimum damage too, but you have to go across a wood bridge to get there. That's another decision as a board will accept ownership of a wood bridge. So that would be out of that comment.
But I believe that was the intent of previous boards, was to accept the bridge.
And I wasn't here, I couldn't argue one way or the other. I can say they were reviewed by the county review engineer, as if that were the intent, but I wasn't here at that time.
But I guess what I was getting to was, I was envisioning that we were gonna get a list as a recommendation from staff, that these, staff recommends we try to take these at this time, because they're.
I would be glad to do so. This list was intended to have a discussion behind it. It was intended to go through more in this format we're doing now.
Narrow it down and bring it back. Simple enough.
Table it for the next meeting? Or we need another one? I'm not.
Before the end of the year.
Probably, because it gives us 2 days. We work in these 2-week windows. Everything's due by this Thursday for the following meeting.
Table it for the second meeting of November?
That's the 19th.
Yes, Council, so the second meeting. Yeah, second meeting, yeah, that's fine.
Fair enough.
The board?
I'm still troubled, not about this, but this timeline on this. We've only got 2 days before the next meeting. If it's something that the board is asking for direction or clarification on, that's gonna take 4 days to get an answer on a bid on another manhole that's gonna be installed, whatever it is, then that means we're gonna have another month, because you can't get that done in 2 days to get it on the next meeting, And
Well, and again, the deadline is 2 days, but we did amend the board policy. That is what came back in June, to allow for the clerk, at her discretion, to allow things to come on afterwards. So, excuse me, we can do that, but it probably gives a week at most, because we do have to get the books out to y'all prior to the meetings. And we can certainly do that. I probably have enough information here to go through and go over the list. If y'all want to move to the
that's what I'm
first
saying,
meeting,
something
November,
like this, I would think that a week, give you a week to get it together, and then it still should be able to be put on the next agenda. To get, because again, we don't want this, that's another 2 weeks.
That's fine, November 5th. We'll put it on there.
Okay. I'll make a motion to table this item to November 5th.
Second.
I have a different issue.
Motion second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So table.
Mr. Chairman, may I impose to ask that y'all go to item 7 under new business? Rick's got to leave in 10 minutes, and he's here for that. I can stay longer if you don't want to do that, but he's got to leave in 10 minutes.
Allow exception from the board. I'll entertain a motion to move item number 7 to the first item of the new business. So moved. Second. Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What we're here for, and I think y'all got a draft of the new resolution. This has been before y'all before under the old resolution, and I apologize for not coming at your last meeting. I messed that up. What we've got is the law library has some funds, and if you remember, we had submitted a resolution that we were going to donate that money to the county under provision C of the statute, which was excess funds that severely limited what you can spend that money on. Somebody on the county side, I think Toss, might have been Eric, came with the idea to change that resolution to have the money come to the board under subsection A of the statute, which was quite frankly a brilliant idea. I wish it had been mine. Where y'all already have those items in your budget. As I recall the numbers, you have $519,000 worth of those items budgeted. We would be donating $50,000 to the county for those budgeted items. In return, the county would fund the drug court program up to $50,000 for the $50,000, $10,000 of which y'all funded last meeting. I'm here on behalf of the drug court to answer any questions you have with regard to the drug court. Rick is our local attorney representative on the law library committee.
We voted to try to provide money to the drug court, and we see that this is a benefit to the community, and we have the funds available to do this, and we'd all rather see the money being put to a use than sitting in a savings account right now.
And the reason we have to do this is the way the statute's worded, the law library funds cannot go directly to the drug court. They can come to the county for those purposes allowed under subsection A. Then you have to provide us funds out of general funds or wherever you get them.
I think we were just trying to be sure we were in legal compliance and not doing it in a way that was possible.
Yeah, I think going with the Section A statute, part of the statute, I think that fits right into what we need to do.
And Eric, do you agree?
Yeah, this is a big improvement. I would still be more comfortable with the law library committee coming up with a specific list of items that they're approving the purchase for, but I think that this meets the statutory definition. I know I think Mr. Kepler's spoken to some people in Atlanta.
That would be a change that would be not a problem if Toss will just email me what y'all suggest, and then I'll just put that into the resolution and get it to the law library.
I'd like to ask while Mickey's here, do you know if the city courts collect the drug and alcohol assessment? Are they collecting that and remitting it?
The city courts?
Yeah.
I do not know. I know that the state court is, and while we're on this, when all this started, the state court is also going to be coming to y'all with the same program, with another $50,000 from the law library to $50,000 to go to their MRT program, which is also another excellent program. But that's not actually before you now, but we'll just use the same resolution when Ronnie makes his request.
We had a meeting with the Superior Court judge and Judge Thompson, and one of the things we talked about was how can we make sure we're getting, all the dollars we can get for the courts and particularly the drug court. And one of the things I think we maybe will collect, I hope we're collecting it, is the drug and alcohol, the DATE assessments from the city courts. We want to look into that.
The state and superior courts. State and superior courts already doing that. I do not know about the city courts. On that point of getting all the money we can, Adam emailed me Friday. Adam found some grants that are out there for state court monies. He emailed me the grant application to try to get done. Now the one I got is due November the 1st. I talked to the drug court administrator this morning about us trying to get that grant completed by the 1st. We're going to do everything we can to get it done, but these are quarterly grants, so we can apply quarterly. These are to the state. So kudos to Adam and Toss for coming up with that idea, but we're going to try to make this one, but if we miss this one, and I don't know, I haven't even read it, I just forwarded it. We're gonna do everything we can in my conversation with Patty today to get it submitted by November the 1st. I know we will get them in now quarterly. Adam has offered to help us, but that's a source of funds independent of all of us.
Well, when we end up writing the funds out, dispersing them, the finance director ends up being responsible for how that's done. So just be sure that she has a chance to review that we are following the policy.
We actually got those from David Zitwauer, and so we have all reviewed them at this point. And I think we just got
For each one that comes up is what I'm saying.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's basically the same rate they had
2 years ago?
2 years ago.
Year ago?
The one that just expired in June.
In this particular scenario, the way to safeguard as far as what you're saying you don't have a problem with and he's recommending, or is that with approval alternative number one, every time funds are expended, we need a request for what it's for, or we need a list up front, or which way were you saying there?
I just think it'd be helpful to have to file a list of specific items that the law library committee is authorizing us to purchase. Because the statute's kind of, it's sort of vaguely worded. It just says, shall be used within the discretion of the Board of Trustees for payment of purchases by the Superior Court, State Court, Probate Court, Mag Court, or Juvenile Court. It doesn't really explain the mechanics of how that's supposed to work, but.
So we can make that part of the motion and then
Sure.
go give us a list.
Sure. And one other thing we've asked is that the state legislature look into amending the law library legislation to specifically reference drug court as
That is a good idea. And that ought to be easily doable. That's a high priority on the governor's list and the legislature's
And
list.
if not that, then maybe increasing the DATE
Right.
fees that we collect.
So the answer is there's no legal issues with us doing this.
Correct.
John, have we already identified items in our budgeted items that this can be applied to?
Yes, sir. We went through and identified a listing through all the courts. What we would like to try and do is to grasp those that are the largest and use those so that we don't have, we're paying for pencils, we're paying for this, we're paying that for that, and it's laborious as far as the administration piece of it. So we're trying to identify larger items where we can write a check for one item perhaps per year that covers a lot of it.
All right, so you can work with them to amend the resolution to identify those specific items.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We just identified all items that we believe qualify to get a total, as Mr. Kickfire said, it's a little over $500,000, so we can find 10% of that somewhere.
Okay.
Or is that something that?
And we'll be doing it again for the state court shortly.
Yeah, and we'll just identify those particular expenditures and list those.
And then,
Now, is this 50 coming in one lump sum, or is it going to be?
it's my understanding.
I can do it however the county wants it done.
And that confusion is part of my part. When you and I first talked back in August, I thought you told me it was going to be 20 and then 250.
And that's the way the original request was put out, was that we would do it in spurts. I think it was 20,000 initially and then 15,000.
That's what you and I discussed.
But the law library has the money, so it's not a question of us having to receive it. We can give it to you,
I
or they
think
can give it to
It would be
you.
easier for us to track and deal with if it was just a transfer of the 50 and us turn around and give them an additional 40, right?
Correct.
And exactly that. We will have to make an amendment as far as the revenue coming in. We will have to make an amendment as far as the expenditures going out to the budget.
As long as we've identified things that qualify under the law library statute.
Look, that changing it from C to A made it a lot easier. That was a brilliant idea.
I'm good. Any
Idea
other
that
questions?
was.
I'll entertain a motion.
Do we want a motion to include that they provide a list or not?
I would like that.
We'll get you, if you want us to, by the next meeting, get you the revised resolution, voted on and signed off by the law library committee, and then you can accept it as when's that meeting?
November 5th.
Okay, we'll get that to you by the 5th. We'll get it, and then it'll have the items, and y'all can just vote on it then if you want, or we'll just bring the check in.
So after discussion, we're going to table this to take
You
action
don't
on
want to vote
November
tonight?
5th.
I'll do whatever y'all want, but if y'all want it to have it, I mean, I'm happy, yes, I want the vote tonight, thank you.
I think it'd be easier, let's take a vote tonight, and provided that you
Little
provide
slow.
us with a revised resolution
Yes, sir.
identifying those items under which we can do those expenditures.
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion that we approve, with alternative number one, and that a new resolution is provided that provides a list of items that can be spent.
Thank you.
Motion and a second, both of y'all understand that 10,000 of this has already been expended. So
We do, yes, sir.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for taking us out of order.
This only took how many months?
Oh, 6, easy? No, maybe not that. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna take a 15-minute break. We're doing 7 o'clock for planning board. We're gonna resume with our planning board. Hour 7 o'clock. First public hearing, planning board recommends approving an application by Arthur Dotson Jr. to rezone 5 acres located at 131 Murchison Road from AR1 to AR2, map number 332, parcel number 1C, being in the first district.
Yes, sir. Mr. Dotson is purchasing a piece of land from Demetrius Gonzalez, a relative, I believe. And they were going to reduce the size of both lots, actually, would be less than 5 acres, and therefore they need to be rezoned to AR2. Staff and planning board recommend approval.
Any questions or discussion? Been in the first district, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion we accept the rezoning with the stipulations recommended by staff.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Next item, the planning board recommends approving an application by William Ellis to rezone 2 acres located at 100 West Edwards Road from AR1 to AR2, map number 263, parcel number 30, being the 3rd district.
Yes, sir. Mr. Ellis has a 5-acre parcel he wishes to rezone the front 2 acres to AR2 to subdivide that. The remaining 3 acres will be sold and subsequently combined with the adjoining parcel back here. This gentleman, they've already come to an agreement to purchase, he's going to purchase the remaining 3. So you'll have 2 acres that will become AR2, the remaining 3 will be adjoined to the neighboring parcel. Staff and the planning board recommend approval.
All right. That was a miss on number 1. I didn't give anybody a chance to talk, but this being a public hearing, is there anyone here wish to speak for or against this item? Did I miss anybody on item 1? I'm gonna go back. I guess they got what they wanted pretty good. All right. I'll try not to mess up again. 3rd district. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion we approve with planning board and staff recommendation.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. 3rd item. Planning board recommends approving an application by George Tuttle to rezone 3.20 acres located at 401 DeWitt Road from AR1 to AR2, map number 264, parcel number 1D, in the 3rd district.
As Mr. Tuttle has 14 acres he is dividing up to eventually give to his family. Most of it divided the 2 pieces that are larger than 5 acres, so they did not need to be rezoned. The remaining 3.2 acres does need to be rezoned to AR2. Staff and planning board recommend approval.
Is there anyone here wish to speak for or against this? If there's no questions or discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Again, I'll make a motion to approve with planning board and staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So approved. Planning board recommends approving an application by American Tower, AT&T, for Vernon Hathcock to rezone 0.75 acres located off of Clio Kildare Road from AR1 to B2, map number 457, parcel number 221, being in the 3rd district.
The AT&T, or excuse me, American Towers, AT&T, are looking for locations in the northern part of the county. You'll have another item from the same organization in a little bit. They found this location on Mr. Hathcock's property, and they wanted to rezone the 0.23 acres to B2 for the use of the tower, and staff and planning board recommend approval. Gentleman from AT&T American Tower is here if you have any questions.
I have a question for you.
Sir.
I understand it's 1,000 feet from any
Resident. From a residence.
From a residence. Is that wouldn't be a commercial building, just a residence?
Correct.
And why is it so far?
I don't know. It was in the ordinance when I got here. It's
I guess it was when I got here.
over caution, I assume.
All right,
And
that's all.
Perhaps visual benefits from the distance as well. That'll just be a guess on my part.
Okay.
One thing I noticed here on the agenda, it says 0.75 acres. Am I?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. No, I am on the right. Vernon Hathcock,
Yeah.
0.75 acres on the agenda, and
0.23.
0.23 on the,
Okay, the application is for 0.23. I apologize. I didn't catch that on the agenda. Yeah.
So the agenda should be changed to 0.23.
Yeah.
I think the 0.75 came from the next item.
The next item, yes.
Yeah. So 0.23 is accurate now?
Yes. Give or take 100.
More or less. Anyone here would speak for or against this? If there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion in the 3rd district.
All right, I'll make the motion again, approval of the planning board and staff recommendation for the 0.23 acres.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Next item, the planning board recommends approving an application by Ralph Graham to rezone 0.75 acres located at 789 Clio Shawnee Road from AR1 to R1, combined with an adjacent parcel map number 339B, parcel number 1, again in the 3rd district.
So Mr. Graham has 2 adjoining parcels, and they want to put a house that's going to roughly straddle this property line. So they want to take some of this parcel and combine it with over here. So the 0.75 will be combined with the R1 parcel. The remainder will stay AR1, and they'll be able to build the house they wish.
Anyone here wish to speak for or against this item? No questions or discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Quite a night, but busy in the 3rd district. Again, I'll make a motion that we approve with planning board and staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Item number 6, the planning board recommends approving an application by SOS Solar for HB Ron for a conditional use located at 1900 Stillwell Clio Road to install a solar farm on 5 acres, map number 425, parcel number 5, in the 3rd district.
As Mr. Mason alluded to earlier, this gentleman, the applicant, has requested this item be tabled until the 2nd November meeting. The applicant and the property owner still need to work out some details, and the board will allow, they'd like that table till November, I believe it's the 19th.
The 19th.
I'll entertain a motion for that.
Motion table to November 19th. meeting.
Second. Motion and a second to table to November 19th. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Item number 7, the planning board recommends approving an application by American Tower, AT&T, for Grady Road to rezone 0.15 acres located off of Union Springs Road from AR1 to B2, map number 457, parcel number 21, in 3rd District.
The exact same as the 2 items ago. This is another cell tower in the north part of the county. Staff and planning board recommend approval. And just for the record, we got many calls about these, and once the folks found out what it was, most of them were very excited that we're getting better service in the north end of this county.
I haven't had any calls negative on.
Does anyone here wish to speak for or against this? No discussion, I'll ask for a motion.
Again, motion to approve planning board and staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Any opposed? So carried. As far as that is, maybe everything comes first. Item number 8, planning board recommends approving an application by Baron and Brittany Tice to rezone 41.01 acres located off of Courthouse Road from PD to AR-1, map number 348D, parcel number 1 through 4 in the 4th District.
Yeah, so this item and the next one are basically the same. We've got these 6 large lots. They were originally part of the Kingsley Plantation PD. They were originally planned for a commercial townhouse. The developer gave up on that, turned them into these large lots, and now we've got some folks that are that want to turn them back to agriculture. They're going to combine these 4 lots, and then the next item will be combining the other 2. This is 2 young folks. Their parents actually purchased the property behind. You remember that was probably about 6-8 months ago that they rezoned back to AR1 as well. And that's what's going on here. And staff and planning board recommend approval.
Does anyone here wish to speak for or against? If no questions or discussion in the 4th District, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve. Staff recommendation.
Motion and a second to approve staff recommendations. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Next item. Planning board recommends approving an application by Ryan Raymond to rezone 24.22 acres located off of Courthouse Road from PD to AR1, map number 348D, parcel number 5 and 6 in the 4th District.
Yeah, this is the same situation. I believe this is the brother of the previous applicant, and also wishes to rezone agriculture, so they can combine the 2 pieces and camp horses and such.
Anyone here wish to speak for or against? If no questions or discussion, I'll ask for a motion in the 4th District.
Make a motion to approve with staff recommendations.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Item number 10, the planning board recommends approving an application by Robert Taylor to rezone 2.26 acres located off of Tommy Long Road from FH
I had to ask myself, flood hazard.
Thank you very much. I just got an education. From FH to AR2, map number 459, parcel number 56 in the 4th District.
This is a piece of property down off of Tommy Long, which is right along Ebenezer Creek. It was rezoned to FH because the folks wanted to have a kayak canoe rental business, which was there for a while, it's no longer there. So the property was sold to Mr. Taylor, and he wants to rezone it back to AR2 so he can have a mobile home on the property. Mobile homes are prohibited in the FH district.
Why did they have to rezone the FH to have kayak business?
Because it was a business, and businesses are allowed in the FH, but not the AR2.
And it'd be a cheaper
It was
cost than doing it like we.
Right. It's a zoning that specifically is for riverfront, creekfront, and if you're going to have a water-based business, it's an appropriate zone.
Anyone here wish to speak for or against? Any more questions or discussion? 4th District, I'll call for a motion.
Motion to approve the staff recommendations.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. That's just that, like,
Quiet crowd, you have that.
Nobody fussing. Nobody fussing, everybody got what they want. It's good.
I mean, I don't have any cost.
Tell everybody they didn't have to come talk to us. Look, they'll do better if you just don't talk.
I think originally it was titled because of the height.
We are in session, please. I said please.
I think we should back up and say no.
All right, first item, new business. Consideration for the chairman to execute an agreement between Effingham County and the Georgia Emergency Management Agency, GEMA, and the Georgia Coroners Association, GCA. Mr. Exley?
Yes, sir.
I know you've got something to say on this.
I recommend we approve.
You checked my pulse to be sure I was alive.
Yes, sir. What this is, the Cardinal Association is trying to get it and go along with GEMA on these things for any, I reckon you say mass casualty is something that's not a declared emergency, that we can mutual aid between counties for something there could be a higher expense or something. We normally mutual aid between coroners for one call or something like that. The prime example they gave of this would be a charter bus crash with full casualties on it, that we would have to call in extra resources. The county would be responsible for the financial part of it, which are going to be either way, whether it's I'm doing it or another coroner comes in and helps us out. That's what this is about in a nutshell.
You just take that out of your budget, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
The ideal thing, if we have a plane crash, that's probably going to be a declared emergency, and the feds will be in here with that, with multiple casualties. If this is something that is on the side road or something like this, where we probably would not have a governor's declaration or anything of that type, that may tie up resources for a day or something on that line, but it would not be. You wouldn't see CNN in here helping with it or any of these others to try to do it. It'd be a local emergency is what it would be. But we'd have to have extra resources.
All right, this board needs to consider this because of the fact, if I understand correctly, Article number 8 those circumstances that you laid out, this county would be obligated financially to reimburse for those.
Yes, sir.
And since we are the dispersing agents for the citizens of this county, we need to consider this. Am I correct? Because this is kind of an agreement between coroners, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Except financial could possibly.
You gonna pay me, or you gonna pay me and others? It's the bottom line of it there.
But if you go to another county,
How's it been
Go
handled?
back.
Has anything ever occurred? Has there been a time that you had to handle this to date without this agreement in place, and what happened?
None locally or anything. We're trying to plan for future type things is what we're looking at. There has been declared emergencies where, such as floods in Albany years ago, things of this type, where bodies were found and things of this type. But in non-declared emergencies is what this is, to try to help out. Mine's on a fee base per case. It would be the same with anyone else coming in.
So it's basically letting them know
If-
that
if-
if you needed them and called on them, that we'll support at that cost.
Bottom line, it'll expedite things and make things go much quicker. If there's 50 bodies in there and I do 20 of them and someone else, others do 30, we're still going to end up paying the same amount, or whether I do them all, so to speak, there. It's going to end up comes out of the budget whichever way.
That's what I say, it's the same difference either way, it's just who we pay.
Right. And should I go to another county to assist or something like that, it's a mutual aid that they would pay my expenses.
This is kind of on the same basis that we had mutual aid agreements with fire departments or whatever.
Yes, yes.
You want to share?
So this is the emails that I'm seeing in this folder here is related to this? Is that right?
Yeah.
So we're okay with the legal side of it, Mr. Scott?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any questions? Motion?
Make a motion to approve order number 1, approve to authorize the coroner to execute the agreement.
All right.
All in favor?
No. Going back up to the agenda. The agenda says consideration for the chairman to execute an agreement, and his motion was for the coroner to execute an agreement. I want to be sure that we are on the right page. Who's executing the agreement?
coroner and chair.
Okay.
The coroner has the right to execute the agreement as it is.
We don't have to authorize him, all we have to do is authorize you.
So your motion was for the coroner. I need a motion to allow me to sign it on behalf of this board.
Make a motion for the chairman to approve, authorize to execute this agreement.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next item, consideration to approve a warranty deed for acceptance of the roads and Low Ground Farms subdivision. Mr. Leota?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise to eradicate one road off of the long list of roads that were discussed earlier. Laurel Land Corporation has provided a warranty deed for the road Burnt Tree Drive in Low Ground Farm subdivision. This was a subdivision that was platted in 2 phases back in 2006 and 2007. This developer has actually gone through the processes and has gone through inspection through Public Works. Everything seems to be fine. We had change made to the warranty deed to expressly remove references to the water system. So the water lines are not being transferred as part of this. This is simply roads and drainage. It's gone through the process and there's no particular concerns. Staff recommends approval. The only thing I would ask is that notice that the deed does not have an actual place for the board, for the chairman or the clerk to sign, so obviously that would be added. For my signature.
We have the original of this deed somewhere, so it has not been recorded.
Correct. It has not been recorded until you execute, yes.
Any questions from the board? I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we approve item number 1, accept the
I'll second.
Motion was second to accept alternative number 1. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Next item, consideration to approve the vulnerable population control evacuation residential transportation plan, MOA, and authorize Edmund Myrick to sign said plan. Do you lay awake at night thinking of things to bring before this board?
Emergency management is not a simple topic. So. If I could set the stage for this agreement, this is under a state-declared emergency when the coastal counties are having to evacuate due to a hurricane approaching 120 to 96 hours out. To give you an idea of what that's going to be, I-16 and I-95 will be anywhere from 3 to 5 feet of water on a Category 1 hurricane. We have a certain level of protection that needs to be given to our citizens during a state-declared emergency requiring an evacuation. Effingham County has a number of citizens who are categorized as functional needs. These are individuals with severe medical needs who also have a limited resources that will prohibit their ability to evacuate if need arises. Coastal Health District is required to maintain a list of citizens who will require assistance. From the outside looking in, this agreement is very clear. Before landfall and approaching hurricane, Coastal Health reports the number of residents to EMA and to GEMA. Coastal Health provides resources at the staging center. GEMA assumes full responsibility for the cost of transportation to Macon, and Effingham County Emergency Management Agency only coordinates and manages the agreement. This is an excellent agreement and is very needed in Effingham County. It basically has no cost to us other than the staging center, which is the senior citizen center here in Springfield. The main reason that I bring this to you is the undisclosed amount that you will find. I do not want this to be approved tonight, and then in November an evacuation happen, and I go to Joanna and say I need this much in emergency funding to evacuate. Coastal Health provides campaigns that get citizens that need this service to sign a roster. Currently, there is no one on that roster. An educated guess would put the county somewhere to 16 to 20 people that's going to need this service. However, that has not been determined yet. Therefore, I can't tell you exactly what the fee is going to be, because if they're not on their list, ultimately it's my responsibility to make sure that the functional needs make it to Macon in time, or make it at least to the staging center to be picked up. So until we push out the campaign and get those required citizens on that list, those are going to be the ones that call me in the event of evacuation at the last minute needing help to get out.
What's the criteria for required citizens?
Coastal Health has a 3-page application, and they set the standard for that themselves. The cost on our side, if that was determined, you're looking at coastal coaches, $15 to $20 per hour plus mileage for however many that we need. And unfortunately, I can't tell you that. Hopefully, at that point, we will not need any. We will have, Coastal Health will have the number of individuals on their list. They will be pre-identified and we can move forward. But this opens up a slew of discussion on emergency management and evacuation if you choose to go down that path, which is a long discussion, such as long-term care facilities. We have one, which is at the hospital. They have plans in place. I have worked with them. I know their plans. At the same time, the hospital's policy is to discharge. Well, once you discharge, you're discharging them into the parking lot. That becomes my responsibility. So, with that being said, the plan itself, the agreement that you have in front of you, is no cost and is an excellent plan for Effingham County and very much needed.
Did you just say that if someone's in the hospital at Effingham County in long-term care, an emergency evacuation order is given because there's a state declared emergency, that their policy is to discharge?
The long-term care facility, they have plans in place, and this plan also covers them. The hospital itself is a different character. If they are not critical, they are discharged in the event of an evacuation, so the hospital does not carry that burden.
Okay, not the people in the long-term care facility?
That's correct.
Okay.
And it's still the people that end up in the parking lot will be my responsibility.
And did you say the cost with coastal carriers, coastal health? Did you get quoted?
Coastal coaches.
$20 per hour per person?
Per driver.
Per driver.
Yes, we would be paying just cost. We were actually in the process of negotiating with coastal coaches before this came about through GEMA. Because it is desperately needed in Effingham County. I mean, there was nothing in place before.
Where did you come up with the possibility or that it would probably be somewhere from 16 to 20 people? Like, how do you arrive at that?
In contacting medical facilities that supply oxygen to certain places and certain services off the radar.
And whose responsibility would be to get that list together?
That's the thing. Ultimately, it is Coastal Health's responsibility. They have a campaign that they push out publicly, and they get people to sign up. However, if no one signs up for that list, it doesn't really matter too much to them. Ultimately, it will fall on my shoulders in the event of an evacuation. If they're not on that list and we order an evacuation, they will be called saying, I need to get out, I can't leave for whatever reason. Now, there's a difference between the individuals that have functional needs that can't get out, that we need to help, and there's a difference between the people that just can't afford to leave, and we will end up staging them here in one of our shelters. But you do not want to put functional needs patients in with our general population shelters.
Functional needs means there's a physical health need, right?
Correct.
I think I read in there somewhere. Where were you evacuated to? Macon, Georgia? Did I read that somewhere?
Yes, sir. This particular agreement, we go to Macon. The long-term health care facility here in Effingham goes to Augusta.
I know my mother's in the extended care facility. We get once a year a list, how many clothes to provide, all this, basically a packet, if you will, that we're supposed to have there in place. And they evacuate to Augusta.
That's correct.
That's interesting and somewhat troubling about the hospital, though.
Well, I guess it's non-emergency.
You can open up the discussion. We also have assisted living here in Effingham County. Their policy is to call the family. That's it. So if their family does not come and get them, that will end up being my responsibility to evacuate them as well, or either shelter them here in Effingham County.
So ultimately, are those folks not going to be on our list?
In the assisted living, no, sir, they will not.
I understand, because they've got a designated plan, but
Yes, sir.
for these folks that basically say, we're going to put you out in the parking lot.
Correct. At the hospital, they're not on any list whatsoever. And we will not know how many people will need some kind of sheltering or evacuation until it happens.
No, there's not a high number of people in the hospital every day anyway.
I gonna ride this thing out and everybody's staying here.
Yes,
And they're closer to it than we are.
yes.
Is the purpose of that so the hospital be open for people that's got hurt or something in the storm?
That I couldn't tell you, that's an internal policy with them.
Good question.
Then why you don't get rid of them if you don't have anybody else coming in?
I think that would be an interesting question for to ask their board.
So without this policy in effect, what happens?
You have no evacuation procedures in place to get people from here to Macon, and I would end up having to use coastal coaches to do that, per vehicle, per hour, per mileage. And that would cost us from here to Macon, where this is actually free.
Well, this is just to round them up and get them into one place.
Correct. And get them from there to Macon.
Oh, it's free because of the aid that you're getting.
It's free because of the list that Coastal Health has to bring those people into a certain area. Before the Senior Citizen Center, our staging point, before my time, was a YMCA in Pooler. And during Floyd, we evacuated into Pooler, and Chatham County shut the doors on them. So they were full and they could not take any more. Therefore, we needed a staging area here in Effingham County to handle Effingham County citizens to make sure they were taken care of.
Any other questions? Discussion? Anybody got a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. Order number one.
You're saying there's no cost involved unless we have the emergency?
That's correct. It's the residual conversation that I wanted to bring up to make sure that you got full disclosure. But as far as the agreement itself goes, there is zero cost other than the staging area itself, and Coastal Health has the burden of supplying refreshments and nutrition meals at that point. It would just be lighting and staff for us.
I'll second.
Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So carried.
Thanks, sir.
Mr. Chairman, could we back up and, look at the Coroner's, Association agreement the last time before Mr. Myra, please? Oh, I'm sorry, it's not Mr. Myra, it's David, sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Do we have a question or an issue with that?
Yeah, well, it looks like this was an agreement by lots of counties, and so it has this expiration clause in there because a lot of counties signed it long ago, of January 7th, 2012. Says the participating parties may agree to extend it for an additional term of 10 years. I'm not sure the,
So we're good, we have Christmas that expired, we're done.
I don't know whether the participating parties have agreed to renew. I apologize, I missed it. First reading. But it appears they just used the date of the first execution by lots of counties. Does the board, would the board wish to authorize the chairman to make corrections to the expiration date as necessary to carry out the intent, which was to enter into a 10-year agreement?
Do we need to put that in the motion that the chairman will sign an expiration date?
Right.
That
But the chairman can
Chairman may not only sign it, but can also change the expiration date.
right. If there's any changes other than that, we would have to bring it back to you.
Do we need to add that to the agenda and vote on it, or just amend?
Just go back to a motion to reconsider the previous, and then to amend what you did earlier at tonight's meeting. We're still in the same meeting, so you can
to this year.
To authorize,
What you said.
to authorize the chairman of the coroner to,
I couldn't hear him.
to amend the expiration date as necessary.
Okay, I'll add that to my motion. To change the expiration date.
To authorize the chairman of the coroner to amend the expiration date
An
consistent.
expiration date
For
of
up to 10 years.
2012.
Right,
In that agreement.
Okay.
We
For up
need
to
to
10 years.
amend it.
for up to 10 years.
For the chairman and the coroner, did you say?
Yes.
Okay, I'll do that.
For up to 10 years.
For up to 10 years.
This is an intergovernmental agreement, so it
I second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried.
thank you. I apologize.
Don't mess up again. We're tired. We're about to go to sleep over here. All right. Just reading that thing about the consideration of the vulnerable made me tired.
Just read it, make it tired.
All right, next item, number 4, consideration to approve a new employee performance appraisal. No, I'm not gonna read it, all 173 pages.
You're not?
Not,
Okay. I'll summarize for you. Good evening. Just to give you some background, currently the county has approximately 195 different performance appraisals. They date back as far as 2002, 2004, and can be pulled currently. When they are compared to the current and involved job tests of the individual departments and the requirements of the job, they're not representative of the job performance when and if audited by the Department of Labor. In addition, multiple documents are decreasing the efficiency for the department heads, and the evaluation process is very difficult for them to complete them all at once. As per employment trend, we are submitting a single updated appraisal form with established categories for which each employee is going to be rated. It has a variable number of subcategories within each category. Department heads have comment space that can be expanded to address specific assignments and individual accomplishments. The copy that you have in front of you is actually the computerized copy, but as you write comments, it does expand, and the document can get longer or shorter as you need it. Department heads are going to be required to support excellent and unsatisfactory ratings with measurable performance statements to support that rating. The respective subcategories are weighted per job task area essentials to position. And once completed, the ratings for those subcategories are averaged to produce an overall score. The overall score can be applied to a curve as opposed to subjective discretion to determine the merit raise level if it is approved by the Board of Commissioners within that respective budget year. Appraisals will be conducted once per year at the same time. We're moving that. And then to be eligible for merit consideration, a staff member will need to be employed within the county for 1 year. Please note that this document can also be used as an evaluation for performance improvement plan, or can be used in a probationary period if applicable. Again, there's no additional funds required. This is a document change only, and we are requesting that the board approve alternative number 1 for the performance appraisal. I have attached versions of the old appraisal you can see, but as I said, there are 195 different ones, so they're available in the Human Resources office right now.
These are filled out by the employee's immediate supervisor, at what level are these done?
They are done by the employee's immediate supervisor, or whoever you report to, but they can be used at all levels. So you can take it from an employee. Generally, the department head likes to fill out and review all appraisals within their department, but they can ask their supervisors that they have over certain employees to fill out those ratings before they review. They have that option. In addition, some department heads can ask for a self-appraisal first, meaning giving it to the employee, having them rate themselves, and then turn it in if they choose to do so. It's entirely up to them.
You definitely need to have a succinct way of doing it, not 195 different.
Yes, it's very difficult to track, and they're not matching to what you're asking them to do anymore.
Are these reviews, so the supervisor does appraisal on employees? Is there a higher level that reviews? Is there a further review?
At this point, the county is not set for further review. It's something that we can look at creating. Now, this is, right now, we have one set of reviews to supervisor to employee. We don't have a secondary level. It's not something that we can't look at as we expand. We're just trying to, as we just said, condense in order to move forward a little bit.
And if an employee has comments or doesn't agree, what do they do at that point?
There is an employee comment section, and it's actually required that the employee actually write those comments so they cannot be manipulated by the department head within the computer. It's designed that way specifically.
If
So,
the score had a problem, would it be further forwarded to you? If an employee did have a problem with their score by their supervisor, what is it? What's the
For grievance.
or grievance?
yeah, they would follow the grievance procedure. They can come to me, they can come to the county administrator, they can go to their department head. Either way, any way that they'd like, following your SOP. All of the above. That's an option. We don't have a meeting. What we're trying to do is, the reason we're putting the excellent and the unsatisfactory ratings having to be measurable is that we do not want any surprises for the employee. If you are performing at an exceptional level, there's something out there that you're doing that says that, and we need to be able to back that up. In addition, if you're performing at an unsatisfactory level, and a performance appraisal is not the first time you need to hear about that. That conversation should have happened before the performance appraisal, during a probationary period, during the incident happening. So that's one of the reasons why we've added that particular section, that the measurable comments must be included.
And at what interval is this done?
It should be done once per year. At this point, due to the fact there's been lack of merit in the county, the department heads have not filled out these for about a year and a half, so we would like a yearly basis, and we want an assigned time, not on an anniversary date. So based upon how the budget is set up this year, performance appraisals will be done in December to be applied in January, and it will continue to do so.
Is there a way to measure if all supervisors just check an excellent, just everybody grades out wonderful? So everybody gets a raise?
Yes, and they're gonna have to do an awful lot of writing as to, they're gonna have to do an awful lot of writing as to support why they're doing it. That's that measurable statement. If you can explain exactly why you are doing that, it is possible to have that, but.
Where I'm employed, you start with the supervisor, then it goes before a group of managers, and that has to be supported if anybody's performing above. So,
Especially all of them are.
that's what I'm
All perfect employees.
It's unfortunately, as trend, that's a very easy way to do appraisals. No one's upset. It's easy to check off, but this is designed so it's very hard to do that without being questioned anyway.
What about job descriptions? This doesn't tie to your job description in any way.
It does not tie directly to your job description, but it allows you to comment on points of your job description. At certain times, you're not doing everything within your job description, and that has been part of the problem in the past with the old performance appraisals. A person may not be doing that action right now. It's not required for a certain year. It's not required for a certain time, but they should have weight on what they are doing. So this went into base categories as opposed to individual sentences from the job description. Job descriptions can be attached as well if they would like to do so. We also have those on file.
So if department heads don't have this completed by December, whatever date, then their evaluation won't be
Correct.
very well, very good.
It does put that, make the department head accountable for making sure that they're turned in on time and fully completed. But then again, they have one time a year that they can prepare that they need to do this instead of having, sometimes they get 7, sometimes they get 1, sometimes one gets lost for 3 months. It is a set time and it's done and it's completed and it's on file for the county.
So would it be a good idea to have management have all of their subordinates reports done by December 15th? And then
We were going to set a calendar. If the board approved the new appraisal, we were going to set a calendar for the department heads of when this would be released, a little bit of training on how to do this particular appraisal, and then of course a question and answer period, and then a final due date. It gives us some time in human resources to review everything in case anything is questionable or something wasn't done correctly, and we can get them corrected and then applied to payroll as needed in January.
because it some point, department heads have to be evaluated by someone else, correct?
Correct, department heads are evaluated by the county administrator, and these documents will go to Toss Allen at this point.
So if department heads have to have all the subordinates done by December 15th, that would enter into the performance evaluation of the department heads to be finished by December 31st.
Correct. You can set that count on the calendar. And just so you know, one of the first questions out of the gate from the Department of Labor, if they do an audit or if they have any questions on employment or unemployment hearings, is that we'd like to see a copy of performance appraisals and anything that, any documentation. So it's very good to have them there.
Any questions? Further discussion? Motion?
Motion that we approve updated performance appraisal. Alternative number 1.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Consideration to approve a bank account for distribution of the hotel motel tax with branch banking and trust, BB&T. Ms. Joanna?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
As is the normal process, anytime that we open a bank account, we request your approval. As you know, this last year, we approved the hotel motel tax. Under our current budget process, we approved that as a separate fund or a special fund. It has a designated revenue source. And so we're asking permission to open this account to affect those transactions.
Remind me again, why do you have to have separate bank accounts for every fund?
We don't necessarily, it depends upon what it is and what we're transacting. I believe in this particular process, if I'm not mistaken, and some of the background information, it was actually a requirement within this legislation.
Okay.
And some of the material, I think, that I had been forwarded.
I just know the more bank accounts, the more balancing, the more work.
Yes, sir.
If you can deal with it with a line item on your budget,
We
seems simple.
we choose to in normal process.
Okay. Any other questions? Have a motion?
Make a motion to approve audit number 1.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Consideration to continue funding for the senior meals program should federal funding be withdrawn. Is that still an item for consideration?
It technically is from this standpoint. As you know, in the last few weeks, we received notice that there was a potential withdrawal of this funding. They believed anyway that they had enough money to go through November 14th. Our bringing this to the board was one, to make sure that our participants that are in this program have a confidence in the program. I think some of them have heard that possibly funding was going to be removed. I know that Reverend Dees was here tonight to speak upon this and would like to come back and speak further regarding this particular program. At this point, we still don't know exactly what the government's going to do, whether or not they are fully funding everything back, exactly which programs, what funding may be delayed. And of course, this is only a stopgap because of the fact that they still have several other maneuvers that perhaps may come after the first of the year. And so what we wanted to do was to, one, make the board aware that this is possible. Number two, also make sure the board is aware that we have about $7,000 within this particular budget to continue this funding, and to seek approval, at least from the time being, that we can continue this at least on a limited basis up to what we already have budgeted, so that if we perhaps get notice, that is a very quick notice from the government, that we can continue with this funding and not necessarily have
a change in the program until we can seek and find additional funding if this funding is removed from this program.
So it's my understanding that all things were restored through January 15th. That's my understanding. All programs that were in place are still in place and fully funded to January 15th. But what you're asking this board, if I understand correctly, is if this happens and now or later, what would be this board's direction as to how to handle it in the short term until we could look at a long-term solution?
And that's correct, because what we originally got word on was that they had funding through November 14th. We knew that possibly we may could get to you or get it on the agenda for November 5th, but we felt like this board needed to go ahead and be aware that there was a possibility of this funding being removed and that there is a continuation of that possibility. So at this point, the plans basically have changed to simply seek your direction.
And there's two different alternatives here. Is it staff's position that the folks that are coming into the center, those folks would still be able to provide their own food, but it's the other people that possibly this is the only meal that they may be getting today?
That's correct. And speaking with Ms. Margaret, who actually runs the seniors program, she felt like that the people who were actually coming into the center, they could still provide the activities and so forth for them and let them brown bag their bags and their lunches so that we would be able to extend enough of this funding that we already have within the budget to take care of those people who are home delivered meals, which would not necessarily have the ability to get out and get another meal.
Which if that was the case, $4,426.90, which would be the $11,426.90 minus the $7,000 that's already there.
That's correct.
Would be needed for that mixed program.
Potentially, yes, sir. Now we
certainly, if this is the only meal some people get today, you certainly, or my opinion is, you don't want to cut that off. That's,
not only that, but we wanted to give the people who are participating, you know, in this program, the confidence that it was not just going to be withdrawn from them until the board can make it, and we could find funding otherwise.
Personally, I understand the statement, Phil, that the federal government doesn't have problems with it, but I don't want to be classed with the federal government.
Basically, they don't have a problem shipping it to us.
They don't.
At any given time.
And that's, well, it's federal, state, it's all getting shifted down in lots of ways. The Board of Health is having the same issues because of some of this federal funding. As it come through, it's going to, what to do with some of these programs.
Well, in this case, you know, with it being our seniors, we really wanted to be proactive in making sure that the board understood that, you know, part of the dealing with the federal government around these grants and when it's solidifying particular expenditures such as this, that we are somewhat vulnerable and that we seek a way to ensure that our seniors are not the ones that take the brunt of this.
Well, for the record, so it's not so big of a brunt to the county taxpayers, I would entertain the option of the second option for them to, if these people are capable of taking their own food, doing the brown bag, but these other people would be totally destitute without the program. That's what I would support, and I can't speak for the board, but if I think that's what you're asking for direction from this board is to how would we proceed in case of an emergency such as this?
Exactly.
Exactly, and my position would be this, simply that we do have that additional 7,000 in there. That would give us probably 30 days to continue, irregardless of what happened. We could then come back to you and seek additional direction within that 30 days to see exactly how we could keep the funding there for this program. But to at least have staff the discretion that if something were to happen, to use that $7,000 to keep that program going until such a time as this board could give final direction.
Is that what you're saying that alternative number 1 does?
That's correct. It allows them to bring in a brown bag for those that are coming to the center, that are more versatile in getting there, and allows us to continue to deliver to those homes those meals. A 60-day period or window of that would be roughly the $11,000 minus the $7,000 or $4,000, which would allow us to come within that $7,000 that we have within the budget now. Because one of the things that this board may not be aware of is because it was a federal government item, the federal government had already mandated that Ms. Margaret had to send out letters that said this program was ending.
Has she received direction to resend those letters?
I think that was a federal requirement where she had to. I believe that she added some wording in there, if I'm not mistaken, that said that this board was seeking every possibility to ensure that the program continued.
But are you saying that they now have to send out a letter that says it's been restored?
I mean,
I haven't seen that particular letter. I saw the letter of
it's a ramp down letter. It doesn't actually say it's funding has ended. It says if the federal government does not open by a certain date,
right.
the funding for this program will discontinue.
Just a warning.
Was it a 70-day ramp down period?
It is, but the wording of it was such that the person reading it.
It's scary.
Yes.
There's no other questions or discussion. I'll entertain a motion.
Make the motion to approve alternative number 1.
Second. Motion and a second to approve alternative number 1. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've already dealt with item number 7. What have we missed? Since we've got to have an executive session before we can deal with the King America thing, and if that becomes necessary, we're going to have to come back in here anyhow. I would love to have a motion to go ahead and adjourn to executive session to deal with that. We'll take a short break here in that period of time. Then we'll come back and deal with that in committee reports. Would that be acceptable?
Make a motion to go into executive session over personnel, property, and pending litigation.
Motion and a second to adjourn to executive session. All in favor? None opposed? So carried. We will have a 5-minute break before executive session. All right, I'm going to call this meeting back to order. That's all. Give me a tickle. I'm too tired. All right. I would consider a motion from the board to add item number 5. To add item number 8 to new business. No, it's actually old business. It'd be 5 to old business. To consider the settlement agreement
Second.
All those in favor?
I have a motion and a second. I have a motion and a second to add as item number 5 to old business, consideration to approve the settlement between King America Finishing. All commissioners now present. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, having added the item to the old business, item number 5, the settlement agreement has been placed before each commissioner. I will entertain a motion.
While I'm not happy with some of the stipulations of the agreement, second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. For the record, public statement. Effingham County engaged the Savannah law firm of Oliver Maynard, LLP, to pursue possible litigation against King America and its affiliates arising out of the May 2011 fish kill in the Ogeechee River and King America's wastewater discharge into the Ogeechee River. In the interest of avoiding the time, expense, and effort devoted to outcome uncertain litigation, all parties have agreed that the best way to resolve this dispute is through an out-of-court settlement. Effingham County and King America have no further comment on this matter. All right. We have one other unfinished item of business, and that was item number 3 of old business. Consideration to approve the board policy modifications and financial policy updates. I would ask for this board to consider a motion to have a special call meeting on 4 o'clock next Monday, whatever date that is, for the purpose of going over these policies for consideration and enactment. So that would be a special call meeting, I guess.
We can't do it next Monday, that's planning.
That's planning board.
Planning board's not 6 or 7, right?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
2 hours.
Gonna be out at 6.
Well, if not,
I'm just
we can
making
adjourn and
mention,
move
just so
to
you know.
the other room.
Or we can just set up in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
do
we
it.
just have a workshop in there.
Yeah. That's, we can still advertise it as here, and we can just do it over there.
This would be a workshop for whatever outcome of that workshop can be brought before the full board at our next meeting.
On the 5th.
On the 5th.
Well, that'll be our next regular meeting, yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. So do we need to table that out? We never acted on it.
We've never acted on it. I think the proper thing would be,
Yeah, table this item to the next, to the 5th, and
And have a
call a
workshop.
workshop.
We can vote on that. If you approve the new board policy or not.
and this board can set the time at 4 o'clock. Okay. All right, motion to table to November 5th.
Motion table to the next November 5th meeting.
And to have
Yeah,
a
we
workshop.
just take one.
Well, that's separate.
You add another item to the agenda?
I have a motion to table this
Yeah.
item.
And call for, workshop Monday, 4 o'clock.
28th, 4 o'clock.
Monday, the 28th at 4 p.m. to discuss the. I heard the motion.
Requires a second.
Second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
None being 7th, 2013. Executive session minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Any opposed? So carried. All right. Who wants to start? Why don't we start with you, Carl?
Let me bring up one thing, because I actually need to leave.
All right.
I spoke to Stephanie earlier. We have an issue over, what's the fellow's name, Stephanie again?
Oh, no, Boucher.
Yeah. Anyway, he lives, you would think it's the city of Guyton, but it's actually in Effingham County. He lives on, there's 2 roads in there, Windmill Flats and West 4th Avenue Extension. Apparently his address, he's having an issue with his address with 911 or with deliveries and such as that. If you can picture, the road goes through, he's the only person who lives on these 2 little roads. It's almost like a Herbert Kessler issue in that, but he's the only person on there. And the roads have been closed for years, but they're showing up as these 2 road names. What he's asking for us to do is, it's almost like a square. One end comes out on the cemetery, the end is closed. Well, he wants to, asking us to change the 4th Street extension, West 4th Street extension in Guyton to Windmill Flats. West 4th Street extension, or 4th Avenue extension would actually be deleted. The problem is, we're going to have to work with the city of Guyton on this, because it looks like part of this runs through Guyton. There's some property issues over there, so if he calls you, you guys kind of have a general idea of what's going on. Stephanie's been talking to him off and on. I'm sure in her duties as with planning. So she's going to make contact with him for us and with guidance to see if we can get this thing resolved for him. But it's not a big issue. Basically what I see is we couldn't name 4th Avenue Extension, and Guyton apparently is favorable to doing away with 4th Extension because they have enough 4th Streets over there. It's confusing for them too. So anyway, basically what he's wanting to do is change Windmill Flats, or change 4th Avenue Extension to Windmill Flats, and delete Windmill Flats off the county. Which is not a maintained road anyway, so it was an old, like Herbert Kessler. So anyway, I just want to bring that up, let you guys know about it. I think it's going to be more of getting an answer from Guyton, because I don't think there's any problem with us on that, getting someone on there. Anyway, I'm going to talk about that in case you hear from him, but I'm going to be excused.
All right. The record shows that Commissioner Mason has had to leave. Phil, you got anything?
I have nothing.
Reggie, you got anything?
Yes, I have one little last thing here. Last week at the hospital, I visited the hospital, I had to go there for a while. And I was asked why the county employees were not participating in this women's health program on October 24th at the Career Center. So anyway, that's what I don't know about that. So I spoke with Rush for it, and I let her fill you in on what it is and has, it costs a little money. There ought to be money in our account to take care of it, so anyway, I'll let Rush, explain it, huh?
I said it's for the women.
It's for the women, I guess you can go if you want to.
If you want to get up there.
But anyway, Rush, you tell them why,
What, where, and why?
and this was started in 2007, is what she thinks to tell you about.
Yes. Just to bring you all up to date a little bit, in 2007, 2008, we discovered and started working with your forfeitures and your 401A retirement plan, and I'll tell you how this affects you in this particular situation. If you don't know what forfeitures are, your 401A is your employer plan. You make contributions every single payroll. You do that, and that follows the law. And at the end of your fiscal year, as about 3 months out, I ask for a forfeiture amount. And your TPA, Integra, basically calculates your forfeitures. And what forfeitures are contributions that have been given up by staff members that during the year are no longer eligible for your contributions that you're making as the employer, i.e. they left before they were vested, something of that nature. What we do is we can never take your contributions that you've made back out of the plan itself. Once they're in the account, they're there. So when the forfeitures are done, we find out that it comes to a certain amount. Average year is $55,000, $50,000, somewhere in there. We go anywhere between $45,000 and $55,000, usually on a yearly basis. Yeah, up to 8, yeah. It's gone as high as $250,000, I will tell you that. This past year it was $55,696.21. And what we do is we ask for the account to pay your contributions instead of us writing a check. At the end of the fiscal year, what the vote was in 2007, 2008, an account was created. We have 2 accounts for employees. One is employee health and wellness, and that's an employee-sponsored account. That's money that they choose to take out of their paycheck, and they put it towards getting flowers if somebody passes away or sending somebody to a hospital or that nature. And then we have what's called the health and training account. And it comes from and is supported by the forfeitures. Basically, what we don't use in forfeitures ends up left over in the budget, and we like to transfer that from year to year. That was one way to not dip in or ask for more money for training or health events. That being said, that's where we stand. We have $55,696, but a lot of it's put back into the general fund. We don't keep all of that in health and training, but generally, if it's a low amount, we keep about 50% in. And it can go a little bit lower, a little bit higher, depending upon what the amount is at the end of the year. Now back to the event. Your hospital, and then other things that we use for our wellness fairs, presentations, everything we used to do, expos, that type of thing at the county. And this is the account it came out of, was the health and training account. And what Mr. Loper was referring to is we have not attended the lunch and learns for the hospital, and it is for breast cancer awareness. That's why it's a women's lunch and learn, but of course it's not completely women if it doesn't there. What we've always done is the departments that are under the Board of Commissioners. That does not include the elected officials, constitutional officers, or boards. So on every given day, we allow the department head or them to send one person from their department or so to these events, and we haven't done that in a while. And what's happened is the department heads have been approached as to why we're not attending. It used to come out of this, and just in the transition that we've been in, we have not participated. So October 24th is their lunch and learn at the hospital. 18 people would have gotten that invitation if we decided to go. It's $25 per person. To give you an idea, the St. Joseph Candler event, everything that they do in Savannah for breast cancer runs $50 a person. So that's like the Chatham-based event, and this is what Effingham is doing here at the Career Center. This money, as I said, is also used for your expos and different things. We can bring those speakers in. We can do something with the employees here, directed completely to all our employees. We can partner with the chamber or the school board. We've never done that, but it's something we can certainly look into and do an event that way, trying to, put our funds together and actually do this. Wellness is something that healthcare and preparedness is going to start going towards, so it's our due diligence to show at least we're trying to do something. And this is what these type of events do. So, question. And I guess our concern is, are we going to be participating in these? I have the account. I don't try to overuse it by any stretch of the imagination, but we're looking for some direction from the board.
Well, United Healthcare, they like for us to have these things, they in health and wellness, and they appreciate that. We have health employees, they don't go to doctors as much.
Right. The one thing that I can say is we put a lot of effort into education since 2007, having the sessions, doing the due diligence, talking about pharmacies and everything. And pharmacy claims have come down just amazingly in the last 4 years. And that was one of your highest levels. The more a person knows about you know, they go to an event like this and let's say they're doing blood pressure checks or they're doing, you know, mammogram appointments or wherever the case may be, you're trying to get people comfortable with the health care system and actually going to have something done. My example is this, and I always use it. I'd rather put a person on blood pressure medication than pay for the heart attack and hospital stay on your claims because the difference is astronomical. But that's what these are designed for. And like wellness expos are things where you could have the blood mobile here, you can have the mammogram group, you can have blood pressure checks, you can have diabetes screenings, we've done that throughout, if you watch the emails come through, we've done flu shots almost every year, we've done anything that we can do to be preparatory, we try to bring in something every year, but it's not as easy anymore. So this just happens to be on breast cancer on Thursday.
Is it training or a fundraiser? What is it?
I'm not sure what the hospital is using on the money. It is a lunch and learn. Now, the second part of the day is an expo that's done with the chamber, and this is not counting that. I'm only looking at the lunch and learn because that's technically the training. They have a speaker coming in, and to me, that's a training and an awareness piece. The expo is more a fun piece, go around and do things. If I were to do a wellness expo for you, it would be a little bit different. But when you do like a Chamber of Commerce expo, it's more of a marketing piece. So that's not the part that we're looking at sending our employees to. We were looking at sending things to lunch and learns and anything that has an awareness base to it.
Would the hospital be willing to come over here
For
a wellness discussion or training or whatever? I mean, instead of paying $25.
I'm sure there's a charge. Our EAPs and United Healthcare will provide information for us if we would like to do a luncheon or some type of training. It's up to you on what you would want to see. The hospital they'll come over and do flu shots, they'll do that type of thing. I use the hospital obviously for all of our drug screens and all that. It's not that we don't use them. So with their changes, they have not been out in the community. They've gone to these events to get you to come to them, not the other way around.
Well, I don't have an opinion one way or another, and I've talked to you this afternoon. First off, I'd like to track the money and find out just what it is. Secondly, I would like to go back and see what the direction of that board was, to know what we're supposed to do, what guidelines, and then thirdly, you know, I think if we're going to be spending money for health awareness and this, that, we don't need to be focusing on such a narrow section of our employee base. I think it needs to be more widely distributed rather than 18 people going to eat lunch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm just telling you.
I think the insurance company, when they were selling us on renewing, was about they would come, or,
She just told you that they would come if you want them to come.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
And I was talking, and as I was talking to
I can, yeah, go ahead.
As I was talking to Rush this afternoon, after reading this, it was, I mean, we can put on things and the hospital will come to us when we can have a time slot that department heads, given enough time, can rotate their entire staff.
We have lunch and learns, but we bring our own lunch.
Yeah.
Bring a speaker, we sit and listen for our benefit, not so we can get out of work and go hang out and eat.
So, Joanna, I didn't really know we was going to be discussing all this, but I would be interested to know what these accounts are and how that money has tracked through those accounts. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot right this minute.
No problem.
I mean, I understand the 401As, if the money's put there and that employee leaves and he's not vested, that money can't be returned to them, so it has to.
It technically never comes back to us. What Rush was trying to explain was that we put a separate line item for those expenditures within the budget within Department 15 so that we could track those particular costs associated with this training. The difference was that instead of saying paying out $200,000 worth of benefits, we used those forfeitures to only pay out $100,000. Therefore, overall, the expenditures of the overall budget were lessened by using those forfeitures. We don't technically bring those funds back into a special account. It simply lessens the overall cost of our defined benefit plan, and as such allows us to have the funds available to perhaps use for that particular line item or for any other budget line item.
So but we've got to put in the budget things for health awareness, and I mean, it has to be a budgeted item.
It usually has been in the past a budgeted item where we could reduce the budget for the DB plan by the forfeitures that we were going to be able to use. Okay.
So in this case, we had 55,000 and some of forfeitures.
We've already used those in last year's budget, and last year's budget's already closed. So at this point, unless we have additional forfeitures in the current year, those funds have already been used to dilute the expenditures that we anticipated in last year.
So is there a health and wellness and a health and training line item that we fund in our budget?
There is a line item. It is currently not funded. The only way that I would say at this point that it possibly could be funded is through future forfeitures or through using perhaps some of the travel and training that we already have in Department 15, which we have $135,000 in that line item. You could choose to move a portion of that line item down into the training line item for this particular purpose.
So if what Greg is saying is true, that a board sat here and took action that said those forfeitures, 50% of it is going into these two categories.
I don't recall that they gave that carte blanche to continue on. I remember
They would only have authority to do that.
that was within that particular year.
Carry that to us.
And in that particular point in time, correct me if I'm wrong, Rush, we were also doing Dale Carnegie.
Correct.
And we had slots where we were doing training for individual people and for the department heads for the Dale Carnegie program.
Right.
And that's why there was such a shift of a large amount, was to do that overall training with the Dale Carnegie within that time frame.
And then we also did,
History of budgets is something to consider, but that.
We aren't guaranteed those forfeitures.
Unless the board set a policy in place, and if there is a policy that was put in place, that's what I'm trying to
The
determine.
board still can't be a policy to control future year's budget, can it? Absolutely no, because they could tie our hands to all types of things and we'd be basically worthless.
Well,
But then you
but
need-
this board
you
would
need-
have to take action.
You need to change it. If you don't want it, you need to change it.
I recall it being done within the budget. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe there was a policy. I believe we made a budget request.
and we've continued to do it throughout based upon what
All right.
the forfeitures, we know what the forfeitures are. That's when they're done at the end of the year. That's the one time we do know.
But
And that,
it's used to reduce our line item for our cost, our employee cost. So the only place that we have to pay for items such as this is in that $135,000 that's out there under whatever.
You could
said.
take it out of the 135 would be the closest place within Department 15. I would also say you, of course, still have your contingency.
But that's the same fund that the commissioners get.
That's correct.
When we go to travel, training.
Correct. Department 15 stands alone, and Department 15 has 135,000 in it, which we distribute to all departments for travel and training based upon the administrator tosses approval of those particular functions. We then move it by budget from Department 15 into those individual budgets.
All right, so is this the same as an elected official, tax commissioner?
They all have zero starting out in their budgets for travel and training. All of those do come through the administrator. He signs off on them, and at that point, we move those funds into each one of those budgets, whether it is an elected official or not.
And the reason I say that, because I know there's a travel part of this thing that we've got, that we're going to be considering, so.
We technically do not fund any within the individual departments at the beginning of the year.
They have to come and ask.
That's correct.
And their method of asking is through the administrator.
We did so because when I was first here back in 2005, 2006, we expended somewhere in the nature of $200,000 to $250,000 on any given year. And by consolidating that, what we found was that we were using those funds perhaps in a wiser fashion by correlating all that into one line item.
So, travel and training. If a department head wishes to travel or do training, they simply go to the administrator for him to sign off on it, and it comes out of that account.
Correct.
If this board wishes to go do travel or training, we have to bring it before this board for a vote.
By your choice, yes, sir.
Our last chairman took care of it.
And that's because you spent too much money.
Whatever necessary. Probably so. You probably right.
I'm just trying to
One time.
figure the. So, let's say they went to the administrator and asked him to sign off on it, and he said no. What is the next step?
Okay, good.
Within our purchasing policy, there is one line item, and that line item says that if you cannot get something approved, through those chains of the purchasing policy or through the administrator, they are able to come to this board.
To the board. So
Yes,
the
sir.
board still is the ultimate appeal process. for
That's
everybody.
correct.
Well, the proposal, and I'll be honest, I don't recall the existing does or not, has the request over $500 can the administrator's request, or should they choose to, can be brought to the board, which is probably not a bad idea, quite frankly.
Because that's not the way I understood some of what we read. Yeah, did I miss it?
It has what I just said in there now, that the largest majority of it is predicated on the administrator approving that, yes, sir. But it does say that the administrator can. Again, I don't know if it would be a bad idea to have should chat.
Okay. Well, to me, it's all interrelated. All right, this is your forum.
Well, I think we're allowed to go to it. I mean, it's 18 people. I mean, I ain't gonna break the county for them to go to it. That's up to y'all. I'm only one person.
In this particular instance, you asked our interim administrator, and he said no.
I asked to review this and we wanted to talk with you, because it's between training and so forth. Department heads asked me, we haven't gone and we haven't really participated as county employees in many community events. And I think that's why Mr. Roper got that question. If you want to support an employee programs, we can, if we have a little bit of money and funding to do so. I am happy to put those on, whether you want to give direction to do it for all 350 employees, or if you want to combine it, or if we want to do individualized events here. It's just a matter of what our direction is and what you want to do. We don't have to do any of them. You're not required to do that. We have in the past, and I think that's why the questions are coming up.
That's why we discuss that, those kind of things at budget time.
I was under the impression that that line item still existed, I'll be very honest with you. So but I don't decide on that line item, so.
And then it would have been in our budget, though, like we would have seen that line item amount in it. Or
The line item is there.
I understand, it just has nothing designated to it.
It used to be in his, we don't rob that out to pay something else. We rob that to pay Paul. Anyway.
Yeah, it shows a little bit of funding in there. Not to further muddy the water.
It does show funding?
It does in the financial, you're in it.
Is this in just a couple of days from here?
It is, I mean, but I think going forward, what would you like to do is the question. And how would you like to spend that money or not? and I'm happy to do whatever you'd like.
Yeah, and
It
the
wasn't
desire
on
was
the
to
agenda,
run.
it's something for us to consider to vote on.
No, and this isn't a vote, this is Randy brought it
Just some
up.
direction, I
That's what I'm
think.
saying.
We intended to.
I would have to solve this tonight in this discussion.
We're not gonna solve it, I think it's information for us to consider as to how to move forward.
I went over there for MRI the other day, and they just asked you a question. So when they asked me about it, they didn't find a brain. But anyway.
Thank you for that declaration.
Anyway.
Oh, goodness.
I told, so anyway.
Oh, my.
I would like to do more with community-based and less all, you know, it's got to be more cost-efficient doing things more local than traveling.
I fully support wellness programs for our employees, but I support those in a broad base. And
You can go.
quite honestly, well, yeah, men have breast cancer. That's a fact. But
But we digress.
sorry.
No.
I brought it up, make you see.
Personally, what I would like for you to do,
Uh-huh.
and if anybody tells me different, I'd like you to come up with a proposal to do a wellness seminar or something
Sure.
that's broad-based. Something, as I discussed, that we could have over a period of time, like from 10 o'clock until 2, or something then that department heads could work all of their department through. I mean, if it's blood pressure screenings, if it, whatever it is.
Take me a little bit of time to pull that together for you, but I can base it off of what we did before.
We've done that before.
health fair.
That's right.
We've done it before.
Just-
got to be able to do all that.
And
Hospital
they
will come to the.
they will come here, they'll do that, and we
See
can,
around the day, and the departments can schedule the people to come over and have a blood pressure check.
that's right.
They have displays about diabetes and everything else. They can take pamphlets.
Correct.
But I think that would better serve, budget-wise, our funding and better fund our whole employee base rather than select people.
Absolutely.
Personally, that would be my guidance for you to come up with a program to accomplish that.
Easily done.
Bring it back for submittal,
Okay,
okay?
will do. Thank you.
Everybody like that, nobody fussing it. But, Ms. Fair, you got something? Al?
I just need to let y'all know about a little something. The county, as you know, as part of the jail project, had to come up with a temporary kitchen as they renovate our kitchen. We explored several possibilities, including a mobile food trailer or Aramark, using an off-site kitchen to provide these meals. The price of a mobile kitchen was extremely high, which you'll see in just a moment. We also investigated using the Methodist campground kitchen. However, due to the fact that it's never had a health inspection, to the best of our knowledge, we didn't want to start more problems for them than we helped for ourselves, and it was also an inadequate space. We also inquired with catering the senior meals at an off-site location. All of those had created an increase in cost. So the idea was to renovate or rehab Central's kitchen and to get it up to specs so that we could use that kitchen as a temporary kitchen. Our total expenses are approximately $2,624.
Are you talking about the kitchen in the building that has the mold?
There's no stoves, anything.
Had the mold.
It has mold.
Had mold?
Yeah, we don't need to talk about it. We got 100 on our health inspection.
How about the stoves and all of that?
Well,
None of that.
as part of the renovation, they're going to be reusing that equipment. So we're getting new Corey tile, new everything in the kitchen. So we had to move that stuff anyways, and we'll be moving it back. So what we did is we went in there, pressure washed the whole kitchen, painted the entire kitchen with Kills. We had our hood inspected; it was in fine condition. Had our hydrant extinguishers tested. We had to patch the roof. We had some cleaning supplies. We had to fix one of the coolers. We didn't fix the freezer. They can still have access to their deep freezer. So we have a cooler now at Central. Aramark would charge the same price for meals. We relocated our own dishwasher, so there was no expense there, and there was no additional expense for additional health care inspection.
So you're saying at this point, we have a functional kitchen at Central?
And it's quite nice. Yes.
Good, I'm impressed.
It is quite, for $2,000?
26.
26,
And that was.
approximately. I haven't got the bill from the plumber yet.
That was budgeted and approved somewhere.
That's why I'm bringing it to you. It will be, the funds are anticipated to come out of the jail fund. When we've discussed funding in the past, we haven't actually lined out anything to that. We actually created a line item for utilities and trailer relocations, and we're just gonna charge these funds to that account. At the advice of the finance director, we thought we should tell you what we were charging to that account so that you have full knowledge and understanding. As a result of this temporary kitchen, the jail and prison will both receive 2 hot meals and 1 cold Monday through Friday. Both receive 2 hots during the weekend and no cold meal. Senior citizens meals will remain the same. Coast Regional Commission was notified to ensure our compliance with the grant, and the perimeter of the central learning site is fenced, it's topped with barbed wire. Guards will be in the kitchen with the inmates while they're doing preparation, and with the Airmark employees. We actually reused the camera system from the school and from the prison kitchen to set up a DVR system, so they're still under surveillance. And the only thing that else will be increased, will have an ongoing expense of the electricity bill will be increasing and the utility bill of gas will be increasing. Here's a breakdown of the expenses. See that?
So y'all gonna let David use the walk-in coolers?
No.
I have asked numerous times.
We don't talk about
They
it.
sell heavy duty degreasers. We
No,
can
that's fair.
cabbage and humans. Cabbage on the right, humans on the left.
I think it's all within our finance policy. That was a fantastic fix.
Asking you to help him out on the roof.
Who helped you out on the road?
Yeah.
Who had the idea about how to do the roof?
We had.
Put kilts in there.
That's right. We had all sorts of things with the patch. The roof patch, actually, we had some prices to replace the roof. They were expensive. Joanna said, look, let's see if we can't patch it or put a tarp over it or do something like that. So David and I went up and moved all the rocks left to right of where we believe the leak was. They isolated the leak and patched it.
Same way y'all fixed up over.
Yeah, it's Toss's office.
I bet that blue tarp looks great.
Blue tarp looks great. Luckily, the health inspector doesn't on the roof.
I say job well done.
Yeah. So we just wanted to let you know that we had expended those monies from the jail project that wasn't budgeted.
We should see that your appraisal, that the appraisal was just appraisal.
Worked well done.
Something else?
That's it. Oh, if you'd like a copy of the weekly thing, I can send it to Stephanie. She can email that to the jail construction.
All right.
Still on track?
Tosh, you got something?
Very briefly, you have a couple of letters in your packet, one from Conservative Services. It's much like the senior citizens. Is a letter notifying us that their CSBG program was deactivated effective October 10th, furloughing the workers, suspending services. Due to the government shutdown, I would suspect, and I don't know the answer to this, that service has been reactivated in light of the CR that was approved. And then it also says that should the shutdown go into November the 1st, there's some additional services that will be shut down, which of course did not happen. There's a notification from hospice in here of an event, a Light the Candle, Light the Memories event that they're holding in Forsyth Park, December the 1st, should y'all choose to go to that. And you have a notification of one of the EMPG grants, the Responsible Recovery Award, that one of them we had applied for earlier, that we received $5,114 in funding on that. I do not recall if I brought this up before, so I'll do it again. State Route 119 Rec Complex, we previously come to the board. We were trying to move that project forward to have everything in place by, I believe, February it was. The rec board, in concert with the recreation director, has decided they can wait a little bit longer so that we can stretch this out until mid-14 for the sole purpose of allowing us time to do some better planning out there. It would appear that just replacing fences and lights is going to leave some grading issues and so forth. We want to get taken care of also as part of it. And I mentioned earlier the site development. Manuel was scheduled to be on a workshop on November 19th because of Mr. Wills, we moved that to December, but because, so that the board's aware of our workshop schedule, I want to make y'all aware of that. And then the only other thing that I have, and I just received this not too long before I came down here, from Miss Emma Pazos, maybe, P-A-Z-O-S. It's a thank you letter for Wanda Price and the exceptional job that she did in her presentation to the seniors at St. Boniface Church on September the 25th. So I'll pass that along so the board knows that we had somebody very happy with Ms. Price. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else?
Usually in September of each year, we start with our financials, gives us a chance to get through our budget. So this is your first set of financials. Like, yes, ma'am. And we also noted that we would keep you informed regarding the audit. This last week, we did hand off our trial balance to the auditors. We could not upload all of our files due to space, so we handed that off to them by USB on Monday. We have our first meeting on Thursday of this week, and we are trying to get all of the elected officials, agencies, and departments involved in that.
Anyone else?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Well, before we do that, I want to make for the public record that Stephanie Johnson agreed to accept the position of county clerk that was offered to her in a previous meeting. I know this has already been reported by the press, but for the record, I want to be sure that it was so noted. Nothing else? I will accept your motion. Motion to adjourn, have a second, all in favor? None opposed? So carried. So adjourned. So gone home.